Chapter 2403, New Era in the Continent of the Nine Clouds, Immortality. The old woodcutter whispered, "We want to become gods, and gods can create worlds which are immortal. Since we can't understand what immortality is, we will never become gods. Is that what you meant, old ox?" The other three supreme cultivators were astonished. They were all incredible, peerless saints, and extremely talented. They all stared at the old ox. "I've already told you. I won't repeat myself," replied the old ox. "Brother Ox, I offended you in the past, but thank you for your teachings," said the Earth Area's supreme cultivator, smiling at the old ox. The old ox glanced at him indifferently, not surprised. Then he turned to Lin Feng. "I never thought he'd understand, and we wouldn't," sighed the Earth Area's supreme cultivator, shaking his head. He said to Lin Feng, "Little boy, what's your name?" "Lin Feng, master," said Lin Feng respectfully. His real face reappeared. "Ha, awesome, I knew you were using an incredible technique to hide your real face, but you probably have your reasons, so I didn't ask," said the Earth Area's supreme cultivator. Lin Feng was surprised. "How did you know, master?" "Even if you change your face, nothing can hide ice-cold eyes," said the Earth Area's supreme cultivator with a smile. "But you're honest, and you showed us your real face now. You have incredible comprehensive abilities. We should be friends." "How could I refuse?" Lin Feng smiled. These people were supreme cultivators. "Don't say master anymore, call me ordinary, and you know the three others, Sa Lung, Old Ghost, and Woodcutter. You're much, much younger than us, so consider us older brothers," said the Earth Area's supreme cultivator. When smiling naturally, he looked extraordinary. "Brother Ordinary," Lin Feng smiled. He liked to adhere strictly to formalities too. "By the way, Lin Feng, how long have you been practicing cultivation?" asked Old Ghost. "Less than 100 years, Lin Feng replied with a grin. The supreme cultivators were astonished and gasped with amazement. Lin Feng was already a low-level saint? How impressive! He really was an incredible genius. The younger generations will surpass us in time, Woodcutter sighed. "I've never heard of such a terrifying cultivator." "Master, there are two cultivators in here whose cultivation speed was faster than mine," said Lin Feng. The cultivators were stupefied. One was already incredible, but several was even more unbelievable. "We've been stuck inside for so long, the world changes," said Old Ghost. The others sighed. "There are new geniuses all the time. Everything changes, of course. When there are many strong cultivators in the world, everything becomes chaotic," whispered Woodcutter. "You're right, the outside world has already become chaotic," said the old ox indifferently. Lin Feng was startled. These people were really strong, they knew all the details. Was something terrible really going to happen in the continent of the Nine Clouds? Lin Feng has been here for 20 years and has passed all the exams. He's very lucky. From now on, the starlit area will never return, said the old ox indifferently. Lin Feng was stunned. The starlit area of the godly grave was going to disappear forever? Many years had passed, and the starlit area had always existed in the godly grave. Was it truly going to disappear forever? It was one of the 9 areas. Wasn't that place a god's grave? "Lin Feng, go in," the old ox told Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the palace. What was he going to find inside? The supreme cultivators were excited for Lin Feng, but unfortunately, they had failed so they couldn't follow him. "Brother Ox, can't you show us a little bit?" asked the Earth Area's supreme cultivator with a smile. "Impossible," said the old ox firmly. Lin Feng looked at them and said, "I'm off, brothers. Go." "The old ox is not nice to us," said Ordinary, somewhat annoyed. Lin Feng walked towards the palace. Suddenly, stars emerged and turned into an ancient path. The ancient path was brilliant and shone over everybody. "Everyone, you can take that path to leave the godly grave. If you don't leave, you'll be teleported back to the place where you were in the godly grave. You have 3 days. Think carefully," said a voice in the sky. Everybody was astonished. "We can leave this place? I'm not done with the exam. How could there only be 3 days left?" thought someone who was taking the exam in the distance. "Haha, finally, we'll be able to leave." Someone burst into frantic laughter. Finally, they were going to be able to leave. I'm finally going to leave the godly grave in which I've spent so much time. Someone started walking on the starry path and disappeared. Everybody could see the path. Some people frowned and looked at the starry path. I came from there, I recognize that road. They quickly left. It was the first time in 100,000 years that people had seen a path to leave. There were different roads, actually, leading to different worlds. The four supreme cultivators had mixed feelings. We're all going to leave this time, said Ordinary indifferently. They had been stuck in the godly grave for such a long time, and now they were finally going to leave. However, they felt a bit sad to leave too. Now we can all leave even if we didn't have enough points. People who are not saints usually want to leave as soon as they're in the godly grave. When saints come, they want to take the exam, but now everybody is probably going to leave. Of course. And after having spent such a long time in the godly grave, seeing the outside world must be incredible. It will be incredible outside, said Ordinary with a grin. Ordinary, you and me, as well as Old Ghost, all come from the continent of the 9 clouds, where all 12 shrines are, right? Asked Woodcutter. One of the roads seemed familiar. It was the one which led to the continent of the 9 clouds. Yes, Sa Lung comes from somewhere else, said Old Ghost nodding. They all looked at Sa Lung. The 9 of us have fought a lot in this world, but we had no serious battles. Do you remember what we guessed? Sa Lung asked the crowd. I think we were right. Yes, gods create worlds. They haven't created only one world. Every god must have their own world. The worlds are not connected. They're independent, just like small and great worlds. I think that there must be ways to travel between them, but that we just don't know about them or where the passages are, said Woodcutter. The continent of the 9 clouds is the most complete world and the vastest. Maybe it's the main world. I'll come to the continent of the 9 clouds to see this time, said Sa Lung. The other cultivators were surprised and asked, You want to come with us to the continent of the 9 clouds? Yes, replied Sa Lung. Ha, awesome, we won't be lonely with you. So many years have passed, nobody must remember us in the continent of the 9 clouds. Let's go, said Ordinary, flying up. Let's go. The cultivators rose up in the air, one after another. Old friends, how come you're not waiting for us? Asked someone as 6 more people appeared. Are you going to the continent of the 9 clouds? Asked Ordinary. He was surprised. Yes, the continent of the 9 clouds. Haha, if we all go, it's going to be the beginning of a new great era in the continent of the 9 clouds, said Ordinary, laughing loudly. Then, they all started walking on the path which led to the continent of the 9 clouds, and disappeared. Everybody had heard them clearly. Many people from other worlds were stupefied. Was the continent of the 9 clouds really the main world? Many people wanted to go and explore the continent of the 9 clouds now. At their cultivation level, going back to their own world was pointless. They wanted to explore. Chapter 2404. Celestial Tao Destiny Technique. Lin Feng entered the Starry Palace, but he could still see everything which was happening outside. He could see all the stars. The old ox entered the palace too, and was standing next to Lin Feng. Master, those roads lead to different worlds, right? Said Lin Feng. He realized that the continent of the 9 clouds wasn't the only great world. Yes, do you remember the giant god's clan? Asked the old ox. Of course. Zhu Xinyan must be stuck at the previous exam, said Lin Feng. Master, why did you suddenly talk about the giant god's clan? My master went to many small worlds, and he also created some great worlds. The members of the giant god's clan really are my master's descendants. Of course, he doesn't have only one bloodline. But the giant god's clan evolved quite nicely. Zhu Shun Kuei Shan is extremely strong, for example, replied the old ox. So what is the continent of the 9 clouds' position in comparison with all the other worlds? Asked Lin Feng. Who had created the continent of the 9 clouds? My master created the continent of the 9 clouds, said the old ox indifferently. Go. For someone who passed all the exams within 20 years, you look indifferent and even talk about the outside world. You know those 4 supreme cultivators would have done anything to come here. They even tried to attack me to come here. Lin Feng was astonished. They didn't try anything like that, did they? You're too naive, said the old ox indifferently. You think Peerless saints would respect rules? At their cultivation level, they are ready to do anything to do what they want. They tried a few times, but they failed over and over again. So they gave up. Lin Feng was stupefied. He didn't think they had tried to attack. He hadn't seen it because he was too weak in comparison to them. But as the old ox had said, Peerless saints were stubborn. Regarding what they told you, they said they wanted to be friends with you. Don't be too naive either. Your friend today could be your enemy tomorrow. If you hadn't passed all the exams, you think they would have wanted to be friends with you? You passed all the exams within 20 years and they know what it implies. Their friends, some other supreme cultivators, didn't even manage to reach the last exam, so don't think that what you did wasn't incredible, said the ox to Lin Feng. I understand. Lin Feng laughed. Even though he was much younger than those supreme cultivators, he had seen a lot in life. Peerless saints weren't friends with anyone. Peerless saints chose their friends depending on what they had to offer, and they also had to find someone strong enough to be friends with them. Lin Feng passed all the exams, so they acknowledged him. Lin Feng didn't think it was strange. He didn't think what he hadn't done was incredible either. He just felt indifferent. Lin Feng continued walking through the palace. He saw a praying mat. In front of it was a statue. The statue didn't depict someone incredibly aggressive, it just looked prosaic. Lin Feng, sit down. My master will manifest himself, said the old ox to Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded and sat down cross-legged. He looked at the statue, and a beam of light shone down on Lin Feng. A strange strength surrounded him. A god, a supreme, a paramount, a most lofty being, thought Lin Feng. He was a bit nervous. The statue glowed brightly, and suddenly, life's strength appeared around it. Master, said the old ox trembling. Little ox, you finally found an heir for me, said the statue. The old ox was trembling, his eyes wide. They became wet with tears. Master, how many years, how long has it been since we have seen each other? I missed you, said the old ox, crying now. He had now become peerless, but he would never forget the old times when he was weak and his master used to play with him. His master leaned against him on the grass and took naps. Lin Feng's mouth twitched. If that terrifying old ox was little ox, what was he? Tiny? I know you're sad, but we were doomed to be separated. Don't be sad, since you found an heir for me, teach him a lot, said the silhouetted figure. He looked at Lin Feng on the praying mat and smiled. I don't know what your cultivation level, I don't know how talented you are, but since you made it here, it proves many things, and that's enough. You must already be terrifyingly strong. I hope you're not too strong, so that you can get rid of your previous abilities, so that you can use my strength. It would be perfect. But I won't force you either. After all, when you're a saint, you have even more aspirations than when you're not. The figure smiled. Lin Feng had doubts. Maybe it wasn't real, maybe that it was just a kind of hologram. Otherwise, how wouldn't he be able to tell what his cultivation level was? Maybe the praying mat activated it, thought Lin Feng. The Star Temple is also the Star World. It's my world. There are 100,008 stars here. In the palace, there are many saints' techniques, weapons, and so forth. They're all yours. You can have a look at the techniques. Some of them don't require a specific type of original strength, which is better because it's always better to use a technique with your own original strength. Regarding saints' weapons, I don't want you to rely on them too much, but you can use some of them to study celestial Tao and all sorts of strength. Little Ox will tell you more about them, then you can study them on your own, said the figure to Lin Feng. You can also study other abilities if you wish, but there's one kind of strength you must pass on. I hope that someday you'll master it. Celestial Tao Fortune. Celestial Tao Fortune Technique. Lin Feng's heart twitched. That sounded amazing. Was it similar to the Fortune Shrine's Great Destiny Technique? Besides, this god was a star cultivator. He represented the starlit area, and the Fortune Shrine used to be the starlit sky shrine in the past. What kind of relationship did this god have with the Fortune Shrine? Was this god the creator of the Fortune Shrine? Dazzling lights illuminated the atmosphere and turned into a beautiful star-studded sky. Master! The ox trembled. taking a few steps forwards. So many years had passed, he hadn't seen his master for such a long time, and now he had the opportunity to see him again. When would he see him again? Little ox, don't be sad. Remember to be a good teacher to him. If he agrees to study my abilities, teach him. If he doesn't, don't force him, said a dignified and majestic voice. The old ox was surprised and nodded. I understand, master. Millions of stars moved towards Lin Feng's head and penetrated into his brain. Saints' techniques could only be taught directly. Studying them from books wasn't as efficient, clear, or precise. God's abilities couldn't be studied from books at all. They could only be transmitted directly. Lin Feng had the impression his brain was going to explode. His mind didn't have enough space for all that knowledge. Thunder began to roll around him. The celestial Dao destiny technique was terrifying. Lin Feng grit his teeth. However, it was so powerful he lost consciousness. At the same time, the billions of stars of the star world condensed and moved towards him. They surrounded him, bathing him in starlight. The old ox watched Lin Feng's figure disappear, then sighed and whispered, "Little boy, if you aren't able to travel through the continent of the 9 clouds unhindered, how will you honor my master's transmissions?" Chapter 2405. Treasure House. Lin Feng was sleeping. However, he also practiced cultivation while sleeping. In his dream, there were billions of stars he could communicate with. They illuminated him and a strange strength surrounded him. He didn't know what kind of strength it was. Celestial Dao Fortune Technique. Lin Feng sensed the power of the stars. He could easily study the saints' techniques. He couldn't bring them to the highest level, but it was still great, just like the ancient holy technique back in the days. But this time, Lin Feng had the impression the Celestial Dao Destiny technique was incredible and mysterious. It was also very complex, and he found it difficult to learn. It also made him understand that it was extremely powerful. There was less and less spiritual energy in the star-studded sky. The crowd gradually left that place. Most people went to the continent of the 9 clouds. Therefore, many strong cultivators suddenly started appearing in the continent of the 9 clouds. The majority of them were cultivators of the Shengdi layer and were really strong. They went to all sorts of places in the continent of the 9 clouds. They couldn't go to the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. Of course, there were saints too. Some of them had been in the godly grave for a very, very long time. Many strong groups were destroyed. Some others appeared and started rising. In the tower of the fire shrine, Lin Feng's clone was still imprisoned. The woman came back and looked at Lin Feng sinisterly. The godly grave is open now. Many strong cultivators have come out. From what I know, anyone can leave now. Where is your real body? The woman asked Lin Feng icily. Why hadn't Lin Feng come out yet? He still had her son, Qiongyu. Lin Feng's clone slowly opened his eyes and smiled at the woman indifferently. I'm not in a rush even though I'm stuck here. Why are you worried? The woman was surprised and said icily, Don't forget what I told you last time. Don't forget Qiongyu either. His life is still in my hands, replied Lin Feng evenly. I'll give you 3 more years to bring Qiongyu back and I'll release your clone. After that, I won't be patient anymore, said the woman as she left. Lin Feng was angry. She was threatening him again. The world is now chaotic. The imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds is in chaos, but the lower world is too, said the woman, and then she disappeared from Lin Feng's field of vision. Is it chaotic already? Whispered Lin Feng. The continent of the 9 clouds was becoming more and more unstable. Real body, when will you wake up? Lin Feng's clone gazed into the distance. His real body was still studying the Celestial Dao Destiny technique. It was very difficult to comprehend. Time never stopped to wait for anyone, and Lin Feng couldn't make time stop either. Time passed quickly. Another 7 years went by. On that day, Lin Feng's real body finally stopped practicing cultivation. He opened his eyes. He realized he was still on the praying mat. However, he wasn't in the Star Temple, he was in a vast and desolate area, out in the wild. He raised his head and looked at the sky. Where am I? I took you out of the godly grave. We're in the lower world, in the continent of the 9 clouds. The godly grave hasn't changed much, the starlit area is now missing, that's all, a voice said to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was startled and looked at the praying mat. Lin Feng disappeared into the praying mat. He arrived in the star temple. He was still on the praying mat, the old ox was there. That praying mat is the star world? Said Lin Feng. Yes, my master modified it for you. He modified the whole world. You didn't sense it? Asked the old ox. Lin Feng was thoughtful. As expected, he could sense that many things had appeared in his mind. He disappeared from there and appeared where he had taken the exam. The 9 beasts were still stuck there. The old ox also appeared at Lin Feng's side. Lin Feng didn't know how he could do that. The Star World's master helped me modify the whole Star World so I can move around freely. Surprisingly, the old ox even follows me, thought Lin Feng. He was surprised. The beasts there looked at Lin Feng, and their eyes glittered. Saint Ox, that little boy is the one who passed the exam? Asked the beast who Lin Feng had attacked with his saint's weapon, his eyes icy. You should call him master, said the ox firmly. The beasts were stunned. That despicable little boy was the one who had passed their master's exam back then. How lucky. He's the master's heir, thought that beast. He was jealous. He knew that their master's world was a powerful world. Obtaining it was his dream, but now Lin Feng had it. Lin Feng looked at him. He could sense that that beast wasn't happy. It was a strange sensation because his perceptions seemed more real. That's the power of the Celestial Tao Destiny technique? Thought Lin Feng suddenly. It was as if he could see people's luck, their destiny. It was a very strange feeling. Lin Feng didn't do anything to the beast. Even though he now controlled that world, he didn't need to be petty. Lin Feng disappeared again. This time, he saw the 9 other beasts. Their chi was even more powerful. High-level bestial saints, 9 of them. Lin Feng was impressed. Those 9 beasts were mighty. There were peerless bestial saints too. Lin Feng disappeared again. This time, he saw 3 figures with human forms. There was a mountain in a constellation. The 3 people were at the top of it, meditating. When Lin Feng arrived, they looked at him. One of them was surprised. A terrifying black vortex appeared in his eyes. Lin Feng had the impression he could drown in those eyes. What a terrifying gaze, thought Lin Feng, closing his eyes. The beast also closed his eyes again. You, said the ox, landing next to Lin Feng. What? Said you indifferently. His eyes were still closed. This is our master's heir, Lin Feng, the ox said to the 3 people, but those 3 people ignored him. When he's as strong as our master, he can come back and we'll call him master, said you indifferently. He looked calm and composed. The old ox said to Lin Feng telepathically, Lin Feng, those 3 beasts are peerless saints. They're proud. They despise me too. If you're strong enough someday, they'll submit and acknowledge allegiance to you. I understand, he replied. Even the 9 high-level saints had ignored him. Even though he was their master's heir, strength was still the most important thing. Let's leave, said Lin Feng. He quickly appeared in front of the Star Temple. This place is where our master used to practice cultivation. There are all sorts of celestial Tao inside. You can study some sorts of strength more easily inside. If you want to study our master's original strength, star strength, I'll help you, the old ox said to him. He could easily follow Lin Feng anywhere. All right, there are also saints' weapons and saints' techniques. In the outside world, people would go insane because of those things, whispered Lin Feng. They were in the star world. It was a gigantic world filled with treasures. The god had left many things here. How daunting. Even if Lin Feng studied star strength, he would not keep it as his main kind of strength. He wanted to develop his god strength. It included every original strength in the world. Can you tell me about the gods? Asked Lin Feng. Gods? I don't know how many lives my master had. At such a cultivation level, people have many, many lives. When you become strong enough, you'll be able to learn more about them, I guess, said the old ox, shaking his head. Are you going to practice cultivation and meditate in seclusion for a while? I need to head to the outside world. Some things are happening, replied Lin Feng. The old ox nodded. Good. I won't help you in the outside world, though. I know, said Lin Feng. he disappeared and reappeared in the outside world. Chapter 2406. Holy City strife had started in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds and then had spilled over to the continent of the Nine Clouds. Dark Clouds was no exception. These days, there was a terrifying vortex in Dark Cloud sky. It was a passage connecting the imperial court and Dark Clouds. Dark Clouds wasn't the only region so afflicted. The other 9 regions of the continent of the Nine Clouds were in the same boat. They all had a passage in the sky which led to the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds. When the sky was broken, such passages appeared. However, according to legends, only great emperors could cross such passages without being destroyed by the destructive energies inside. Other people died instantly. The Holy City was the center of Dark Clouds. After Lin Feng had destroyed some clans in the past, Champion University had become the first university of the city. They had many very talented students. At the same time, Tiantai had also been rising, and they also had incredibly talented disciples. Tiantai had many great emperors, which made many people sigh. What was going on in the world? In the past, great emperors were extremely rare, even in the biggest influential groups. After all, people needed a very long time to become great emperors, and they had to be very talented. But in Tiantai, it was common. It was the case everywhere in the Holy City, actually. The world was changing. After Champion University and Tiantai started rising, the great imperial palace also continued rising. The Canaan Buddhist clan also became stronger and stronger. Some people had managed to get to the top of the supreme Buddhist mountain and had obtained the Buddhist Sutra. Buddhist cultivators became stronger and stronger. Some incredibly strong Buddhist monks had appeared. The atmosphere in the Holy City became a bit wild. Many groups were competing, and the 4 universities also got involved. However, things started and finished in the strongest group, the Celestial Martial Dynasty. The Celestial Martial Dynasty hadn't existed for a long time, but they were rising at a terrifying speed. They hadn't raised their cultivators, though, they had recruited them. In such a short time, they had become the strongest group in the Holy City and could oppress the 4 universities. That was possible because of one single reason: the Celestial Martial Dynasty had saints. If the Buddhist clan hadn't been powerful and prosperous, the Celestial Martial Dynasty would have taken control over the entire Holy City. But the Buddhist clan had created the Canaan Dynasty. They were positioned in the south and north. With time, the Holy City had completely changed. 2 powerful groups controlled the Holy City: the Celestial Martial Dynasty and the Canaan Dynasty. In the lower world, saints were usually hermits. People never saw them, there were just legends about them. However, these days, saints had showed up in the Holy City. That's why the Celestial Martial Dynasty and the mysterious Canaan Dynasty rose so quickly. The other groups weakened. People were well aware of that, but what could they do? The Celestial Martial Dynasty was unstoppable. Even the 4 universities thought so. They even made their students go to the Celestial Martial Dynasty. They hoped some of their students would become saints' disciples. The situation, which was initially unstable in the Holy City, calmed down thanks to those 2 groups when they took control of the city. Tiantai was in the Holy City. They were also powerful, but these days, many of Tiantai's disciples left to join the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Lin Feng appeared outside of Tiantai. After realizing he was in Dark Clouds, he had decided to go to Tiantai. He had heard about the situation. He hadn't thought things would change so quickly in the continent of the Nine Clouds. Only a few dozens of years had passed, and so many things had changed. Lin Feng was wearing a simple robe as he stood outside of Tiantai. It was a bit cold. I wonder if my teachers and friends are in Tiantai. Lin Feng released his godly awareness which surrounded Tiantai. He could see everything apart from a few mysterious places. My friends are all gone, only my teachers are here. My friends must all be traveling the world, thought Lin Feng. He looked inside a temple. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu were there. Apart from them, there was also Yun Qin Yen and Qin Wu. They were talking about something. Xiao Qin is there too. He's a great emperor now. I didn't fulfill my obligations as a teacher, thought Lin Feng. He felt guilty. In the palace, Mu Chen looked at Yi Chen and said, "Xiao Chen, this time, the celestial martial dynasty is organizing this ceremony to prove how strong they are. It will be extremely dangerous. After all, you're little Lin Feng's only disciple, and he's never here. We weren't able to teach you anything either. You can only rely on yourself. We hope nothing will happen to you." "Teacher, how can a cultivator fear anything? My teacher is busy. He's going to become a peerless cultivator someday. I have to honor him and his reputation." Everybody knows why the celestial martial dynasty organized the great ceremony. However, nobody can avoid going. All the powerful groups of the holy city will participate, including the 4 universities. "How could I flinch? Let me go," said Yi Chen, bowing before Mu Chen. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu glanced at each other and nodded. "Since you're determined, we're happy. If your enemy is too strong though, don't take risks." "I understand," replied Yi Chen with a smile. "Little Chen, good luck," said Yun Qingyan before adding, "Now, all your teacher's friends are traveling the world, otherwise, nobody would have dared act arrogantly in front of us. Your teacher, that bastard, hasn't come back for so many years. I wonder if he's a saint now. If he's a saint, he'll destroy the celestial martial dynasty and make them shut up. Those bastards always put on an air of extreme arrogance. Now they'll stop. Saints are legendary cultivators. Little Lin Feng is talented and I am sure he is at the top of the Xingdi layer, but becoming a saint is extremely difficult," said Mu Chen, smiling wryly. "But little Lin Feng left some puppet with me back in the days. He's quite strong. I've never used it, but he can protect Tiantai without any problem." "All right, everybody can disperse. The grand ceremony is tomorrow. The competition between the celestial martial dynasty and the Canaan dynasty will be scary. Xiaochen, you should get ready too. We'll talk to Champion University too," said Emperor Yu. Everybody nodded and left. After everybody left, Emperor Yu and Mu Chen sighed. "Unfortunately, we're powerless. Our disciples have to endure the pressure," said Mu Chen, shaking his head. Lin Feng saw and heard everything. He felt sad for his 2 teachers. They'd had to take care of everything because his fellow disciples were all traveling. "I understand. I'll go and see the grand ceremony tomorrow," whispered Lin Feng. He closed his eyes and after that, a group of strong cultivators appeared on the ground. Their chi was terrifying and contained death intent. Some of them looked bestial. "You guys go to Tiantai and become Tiantai's disciples. No matter what they tell you, listen to them and never betray them," said Lin Feng to those people. "Yes, sir," said the group of people automatically. "Go. Don't talk about me. I'll show up tomorrow," said Lin Feng. His figure flickered and he left. He didn't gather with his teachers immediately. He went to honor his promise. He had to give back the Heavenly Grace ancient tree within 100 years. This time, he was in dark clouds, so it was a good time to give it back to the Godly Wood Valley. Chapter 2407. Destruction. The Godly Wood Valley was situated in a forest in the mountains. It was a hidden land of peace and prosperity, an earthly paradise. Ordinary people couldn't go there easily to look around, and even less to practice cultivation. However, many people were in the Heavenly Grace ancient tree forest looking for trees. They were very excited, because the cosmic energies were thick and rich there. Who would have thought there would be such nice places in the lower world too? "I would have come a long time if I had known this before," said a young man, smiling when he sensed the cosmic energies. They were from the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds. After the passage between the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds and the lower world had formed, they had decided to go and travel, and they had found this great place. The continent of the 9 clouds is so big. The imperial court is also boundless. There are 9 regions in the lower world, so of course there are great places, too. "Our clan, the Blood Sea clan, found this place by accident in a lucky coincidence," replied another one, smiling. Indeed, they had been lucky to find this place, which was perfect for young people to practice cultivation. "I think the effects on our blood vitality will be great," said another young man smiling. Then he stretched his hand out and ate a full Heavenly Grace ancient tree, smiling. "Stop!" shouted someone furiously at that moment. Someone looked at him furiously and said, Heavenly Grace ancient trees are extremely rare. Even if you invaded this place and now control it, what makes you think you can act like disrespectful bastards? The young man looked at that old man icily. His eyes were bloodshot. Stop farting here, old dude. How dare you talk to me that way? Your granddaughter is stunning, what would you say if I fucked her tonight? Said the young man icily. The old man's face stiffened and he started shaking. Asshole, asshole, shouted the old man on the inside, but he didn't dare say it for real. The Blood Sea clan was terrifyingly powerful. They had saints. After finding the godly Wood Valley, they had decided to invade it and make it their young people's cultivation paradise. Even though they didn't kill the inhabitants of the godly Wood Valley, they treated them like slaves. At that moment, in the godly Wood Valley, a young man was walking slowly. When he arrived, he frowned. He released his godly awareness and realized there was something wrong. The continent of the 9 clouds had grown unstable and there were problems everywhere, including in the godly Wood Valley. Lin Feng rose up in the air, looked at the Heavenly Grace ancient trees area. The guard of the area turned around and looked at Lin Feng. It's him. When the old man saw Lin Feng, he remembered him instantly because a special tree had chosen to follow him. He had even said, "In 100 years, I'll be a king in dark clouds." "Venerable old man," shouted Lin Feng. The old man was stupefied. Lin Feng's chi was ordinary. He didn't look like a cultivator at all. And he didn't call him Mr., he called him Venerable Old Man. "What's going on?" asked Lin Feng. "Who are you?" asked a young man on the ground, glancing at Lin Feng icily. Most of those young people were cultivators of the Huang Qi layer. The forest was useful to cultivators of the Huang Qi layer after all. Lin Feng ignored him and looked at the old man. "Echem, the continent of the 9 clouds has become unstable. The godly Wood Valley wasn't lucky. They found our place and invaded it. People who go against them get killed. I want to protect the Heavenly Grace ancient trees, so I submitted to the Blood Sea clan," said the old man to Lin Feng telepathically. "You must be here to give the tree back. Keep that tree and leave." Blood Sea clan? Lin Feng frowned. There were many groups in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds, and they all had saints. No wonder the godly Wood Valley couldn't resist them. "Everybody, piss off," said someone aggressively at that moment. That voice made the ground shake violently. People who were practicing using the strength of the sky blue godly would raise their heads and gazed into the distance. Many people looked at Lin Feng icily. The old man was stupefied. This little boy was insane. "You shouldn't stay here. Leave, hurry," said the old man to Lin Feng telepathically. Even though he thought highly of Lin Feng hadn't practiced long enough. He probably couldn't compete with them. "You want to die?" a young man said to Lin Feng icily. Lin Feng glanced at him and the young man's body became golden, exploded and completely disappeared. All that happened instantly. The crowd gulped when they saw that. Strong. "You all want to die?" shouted Lin Feng icily. Death strength suddenly surrounded the whole area. If Lin Feng wanted, he could destroy everything there in the blink of an eye. In the distance, the air shrieked furiously. A few great emperors arrived and looked at Lin Feng icily. Their eyes were filled with murder. "It seems that you really want to die," said Lin Feng. He turned around and looked at the people who had just arrived, and suddenly they were terrified. Their bodies turned gray, they instantly died, collapsed, and fell from the sky. The crowd was stunned, the old man was stunned too. Lin Feng could kill great emperors instantly? A few dozens of years have passed. I hadn't thought things would change like this, thought Lin Feng sighing. His death strength surged out and surged over everything. "Venerable old man, are there any people from your clan in the area?" Lin Feng asked the old man. The old man was stupefied. "No," said the old man shaking his head. He was trembling while looking at Lin Feng. "All right, good, die." Lin Feng killed everyone in the area. They all turned gray and collapsed. When the old man saw that, his heart pounded extremely violently, he could barely breathe. How strong had this young man become? What was his cultivation level? "I can't do that." Lin Feng could do that, which meant he was far stronger than him. His heart pounded even faster. "Are there people from your clan over there?" asked Lin Feng, pointing to the distance. There are, replied the old man hastily, afraid that Lin Feng would kill them all instantly. He was too strong. All right, said Lin Feng, nodding. Then he shook his hand and a tree descended from the sky. It was the Heavenly Grace Godly Wood. I promised I'd bring the Heavenly Grace ancient tree back, said Lin Feng to the old man. You said you'd become the king of dark clouds 100 years later, but you did it in less than 100 years. You're the first saint I've seen in my life, said the old man, taking a deep breath. But the Blood Sea clan is very powerful. They have saints too. Last time, an ancient saint came here and caused chaos. He immediately killed everybody who disagreed with him atrociously. In a chaotic world, the only solution is to slaughter your enemies, said Lin Feng calmly, but very aggressive. The old man shivered. No wonder this little boy had succeeded so fast. His temper was scary. Back then, you were kind to me and you gave me the godly wood. Now I'm back and I'll help you too. Come with me, said Lin Feng evenly. The old man and Lin Feng flew away. When Lin Feng saw people attacking them, he instantly killed them. Nobody could compete with him. Very quickly, Lin Feng finished killing all the members of the Blood Sea clan. None of them were left. The strong cultivators of the Godly Wood clan gathered and looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. Emperors and great emperors were all like tiny little insects in front of him. How incredible! Master Ox, I have things to do. Can you send some saints here to help me kill the members of the Blood Sea clan when they come? Lin Feng asked the old ox of the Star World. All right, they can do what you can do anyway, replied the old ox. After a short time, 9 bestial saints appeared there in the sky, all of them low-level saints. A terrifying chi surrounded Lin Feng. It was the beast Lin Feng had injured. Lin Feng glanced at him indifferently and smiled. I know you don't want to submit. Just help me protect the area for some time. Then, someday I'll release you. The beast shivered. Release them? Freedom? Really? Asked the beast. Of course, I am the new master. But I need you to help me with a few things first, said Lin Feng. He said to the old man, Venerable old man, they will protect the area. I'm off. Then he left and disappeared. The old man was stunned. His heart kept racing. Chapter 24:08 Lin Feng is back. Many strong cultivators had gathered in the Holy City. The Celestial Martial Dynasty organized a grand ceremony and invited everybody in the Holy City to compare their young cultivators' strength. The Celestial Martial Dynasty made it look like it was a grand ceremony for the Holy City, but actually the crowd understood that the Celestial Martial Dynasty wanted to show everybody they had control over the whole town. The Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint had said that if anyone stood out, they'd have the opportunity to become a saint's disciple. That was something incredible and inconceivable for many people, a dream. Many clans wanted their young people to become members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, or to become saints' disciples. There was a gigantic battle stage set up. In the northern part of the battle stage were the strong cultivators of the dynasty, sitting in bleachers. In the southern part, there was a group of Buddhist monks. They looked solemn and respectful. The Canaan dynasty was the only group who could compete with the Celestial Martial Dynasty. The other groups were still around. There were people from the great imperial palace and the 4 universities. They still had some power in the Holy City. The 4 universities had weakened a lot, but they still had some strong cultivators. Ancient holy clans had fewer and fewer people though. The Yin clan still had some trump cards. Years passed. After Lin Feng had destroyed some ancient holy clans, some new ones had started rising, but they couldn't possibly have a position as high as the 4 universities in the Holy City. At the foot of the bleachers, there were even more people. Many of them were ordinary people from the Holy City who had come to watch. In only a few dozens of years, so many things had changed. In the past, the 4 universities used to be the strongest, but now they weren't anymore. The 8 ancestors of Champion University came personally. They rarely appeared other times. After the continent of the 9 clouds had become chaotic, they had come back from abroad. Things had changed, and now the Celestial Martial Dynasty was the group who organized grand ceremonies. People had to give them face. Tiantai's people were with the members of Champion University. Champion University and Tiantai were very close, thanks to Lin Feng. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu were with the 8 ancestors of the university on the very left of the group. Ancestor Xian Tian and Ancestor Shi Tian, who were very close to Lin Feng, were next to them. Mu Chen, the direct disciples of Tiantai haven't come back? Ancestor Shi Tian asked Mu Chen. Even though Mu Chen and Emperor Yu weren't very strong, they had raised incredible disciples. Lin Feng was terrifying, and Ho Qing Lin Ruoxie, Tianqi were all strong. No. The continent of the 9 clouds is chaotic. I don't know how they are these days, replied Mu Chen. He missed them. Why didn't you contact them? Asked Ancestor Shi Tian, smiling wryly. I don't want to disturb them, they're busy, said Mu Chen, shaking his head. Ancestor, do you have news from Lin Feng? No. He disappeared a long time ago, said Ancestor Shi Tian. I've heard that all the shrines are looking for him, to kill him, said Ancestor Zhu Tian evenly. Emperor Yu and Mu Chen's hearts twitched nervously. Ancestor? Mu Chen looked confused. You didn't know? All the shrines are looking for him, they are ready to do anything to kill him. I'm afraid, said Ancestor Zhu Tian patiently. Emperor Yu and Mu Chen grew even more nervous. Their stomachs burned. All their direct disciples were like their children. They loved them. They didn't want anything to happen to them. I'm afraid he might be dead, admitted Ancestor Zhu Tian calmly. Enough, said Ancestor Shi Tian angrily. Lin Feng is protected by the Fortune Shrine. He's probably fine. Mu Chen, if your direct disciples are not here, who can participate today? Asked Ancestor Zhu Tian indifferently and disdainfully. One of them. I hope he won't disappoint me, said Mu Chen. Ancestor Zhu Tian's tone of speech was starting to irritate him. He knew that these people were ancestors, and that they would never have sat at the same level as him if Lin Feng didn't exist. I've heard that many of Tiantai's disciples have abandoned Tiantai these days. Can you compete with other groups now? Asked Ancestor Zhu Tian. We still have many talented disciples, said Mu Chen. He didn't like arguing with people, but he was losing patience. He sounded angry. We'll see, said Ancestor Zhu Tian, smiling. He didn't say anything else after that. Ancestor Shi Tian was startled. He hadn't thought Ancestor Zhu Tian would be angry because of trivial matters which had happened in the past. Everybody had forgotten about those small things, but not him. When Lin Feng had become famous, he hadn't shown his feelings, but now things had changed. At that moment, members of the crowd looked at Ancestor Zhu Tian angrily. He was surprised. They were looking at him. Those people are so strong, are they from Tiantai? Thought Ancestor Zhu Tian. He asked, Mu Chen, who are those people? Tiantai's people, said Mu Chen icily. Ancestor Zhu Tian was startled, and smiled coldly. He said, so you have friends? At that moment, clouds rolled in the sky. A young man was flying above them. He looked furious. What was wrong with that Zhu Tian? Lin Feng and those people belonged to a different world. He could see everything that was happening in the holy city. He had also heard Ancestor Zhu Tian and Mu Chen's conversation. I haven't seen my teachers for such a long time. I'll be happy to talk to him, thought Lin Feng with a smile. Then he disappeared from there. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu didn't know that Lin Feng had arrived. They watched the members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. A group of people wearing imperial robes were on a flight of stairs. They looked imposing and awe-inspiring. Behind them were some young people. Some of them were from Tiantai before and had betrayed Tiantai. That bunch of bastards, thought Mu Chen angrily. Nobody prevented their young people from joining the Celestial Martial Dynasty in the Holy City these days, but doing it without their elders' approval was a betrayal. Teacher, how come you get angry so easily? Asked a familiar voice. Mu Chen's face stiffened. What a familiar voice. Mu Chen's heart twitched. He turned around and saw a young man smiling. Mu Chen shivered. He was worried about Lin Feng just a moment before, and now he was there in front of him. Emperor Yu also turned around and shivered. Lin Feng was back. Lin Feng had a huge smile on his face and said, Is there anything on my face, teachers? Phew! Mu Chen and Emperor Yu took a deep breath. Mu Chen also smiled broadly. He looked much younger all of a sudden. His best disciple, his most talented disciple, was back. He remembered when all his disciples had helped him and his wife Jing Xiaoyu. He would never forget that. He had the impression he had led a worthy life only because of that. He remembered those enthusiastic disciples. Mu Qin is my teacher. Ancestor Shi Tian was stupefied, but smiled. Lin Feng was there, how could anything happen to him? Ancestor Zhu Tian pulled a long face, shocked at this turn of events. Chapter 2409. Ling, you're back, great, said Mu Qin several times. It was difficult to calm down. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu moved aside and left a place between them. Little Lin Feng, come here and sit. All right, said Lin Feng smiling. Then he sat down between them. He nodded at Ancestor Shen Tian and Ancestor Shi Tian and said, Hello ancestors, how are you? We're all right. We're happy to see you. Ancestor Shi Tian smiled. You left for a few dozens of years, such a long time. Because some things require time. I just came back, sorted out a few things and immediately came here to see you, replied Lin Feng. You came for your teachers, not for us old men, said Ancestor Shi Tian laughed. Of course, Lin Feng had gone through so much with Emperor Yu and Mu Qin. It was incomparable. Little Lin Feng, how have you been? Emperor Yu asked Lin Feng. I've been all right. No major problems. Don't I look fine? Said Lin Feng breezily. And you, teachers, you must be exhausted managing Tiantai. Lin Feng had seen that his teachers looked tired when arriving, especially because of Ancestor Zhu Tian. After he arrived, Ancestor Zhu Tian shut right up though. Father! Lin Feng saw a teenage girl arrive in front of Mu Chen. She looked at Lin Feng in a strange way. That's? Lin Feng was astonished and looked at Mu Chen. Lin Feng, that's Ling, our daughter, said Mu Chen smiling proudly. Ling, that's the little Lin Feng I tell you about all the time. It's the first time you've seen him, said Mu Chen, caressing her head. When Lin Feng heard that, his eyes twinkled and he smiled. His teacher finally had a daughter, he was very happy. Brother Lin Feng, said Ling. She looked like her mother, she was very beautiful. Ling, come here, said Lin Feng smiling. Ling looked at her father and then walked over to Lin Feng, then she stuck out her tongue teasingly and said, My dad always says you're his most talented disciple. What's your cultivation level? Probably stronger than you, said Lin Feng, caressing her head. Then he dragged her to him, pinched her cheeks, and said to Mu Qin, Teacher, how come you didn't contact me? This is something very important. I didn't want to bother you while you were traveling, Mu Qin smiled. That's not something trivial, though. It's important, said Lin Feng. He was speechless. He was annoyed and asked, Ling, how old are you? Ling looked at him and said, I'm 15. I have the impression you consider me a little child. Well, you are a little one, aren't you? Lin Feng laughed. Everybody's silence, said someone in the distance. Instantly, everybody stopped talking and turned around. They all looked at the strong cultivators of the celestial martial dynasty. Someone waved his hands to make everybody stop talking. Everybody, today, the celestial martial dynasty has invited everyone for the grand ceremony. We want to make the city more powerful. Back in the days, people fought to be on the imperial ranking list and the great imperial ranking list. From now on, they don't exist anymore. We'll organize the celestial martial dynasty grand ceremony. It will replace the Pathfinder Day of the imperial ranking list and great imperial ranking list. People who do well will join the celestial martial dynasty and some people will have the possibility to become saints' disciples, said that person proudly. Many young people looked enthusiastic at his words. Saints were legendary cultivators. Being a saint's disciple would be amazing. Regarding the different levels, people have to be at least emperors to participate. They will be divided into low-level emperors, medium-level emperors, high-level emperors, and great emperors. Now, send your low-level emperors to the battle stage. All the groups must have participants, said that person. After he said that, Lin Feng said to Emperor Yu, Teacher, will Tiantai send 6 people as well? They had to send 1 person for each cultivation level, that was 6 people. Yes, no choice unless a group has absolutely nobody at that cultivation level. Tiantai must participate too, replied Emperor Yu. I understand, said Lin Feng nodding. How strong is Tiantai now? Emperor Yu shook his head. He didn't seem satisfied as he said to Lin Feng, back then, when you left, Tiantai and Champion University were thriving. However, after that things became chaotic. The great imperial palace rose. The celestial martial dynasty appeared, and then the Canaan Buddhist clan appeared. Geniuses started leaving Tiantai to go to the Canaan Buddhist clan and the celestial martial dynasty. Champion University and Tiantai lost some incredibly talented disciples who betrayed us and went to the celestial martial dynasty. Some of them will get on the battle stage, you'll see. When Tiantai was thriving, we could recruit talented people, but it didn't mean they were good, said Lin Feng to Emperor Yu. Yes, Mu Chen and I won't be able to have great direct disciples like in the past, Emperor Yu sighed. He would be proud of his direct disciples his entire life. Uncle Emperor Yu, you have a group of great direct disciples, that's already great, said Ling, smiling at Emperor Yu. Yes, that's enough, and now we have little Ling, said Emperor Yu smiling at Ling, in Lin Feng's arms. By the way, little Lin Feng, you're the one who sent those people yesterday, right? Said Emperor Yu suddenly. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, they can fight with great emperors. All right, at least, Tiantai won't lose face too much that way, said Emperor Yu. Where are our fighters? Asked Lin Feng. They're down there getting ready to fight, but it would be great if we could change some fighters, said Emperor Yu, pointing at a group of people in the crowd. There was a low-level emperor. He looked up at Mu Chen and Emperor Yu. Ji Liao, do your best. If you can't win, give up, but don't take risks, Emperor Yu said to the young man. All right, replied the young man. I'll use my full strength. Ji Liao, said Lin Feng at that moment. Ji Liao looked at Lin Feng. He looked perplexed. He didn't recognize Lin Feng. He looked young, and was seated between Emperor Yu and Mu Chen, and Miss Ling was in his arms. He had an extraordinary position. Do your best, said Lin Feng. Lights emerged from Lin Feng's eyes and surrounded him. Ji Liao was stupefied and asked, Master, that's, go. If you lose, you'll understand, Lin Feng smiled. Ji Liao bowed before Lin Feng and left. Little Lin Feng, did you do anything to him? Asked Emperor Yu. I gave him an extra layer of protection to prevent him from dying, said Lin Feng. There were hundreds of fighters. Apart from strong cultivators from influential groups, there were also some individual cultivators. Those people belonged to no group, they were talented and wanted to become a saint's disciple. The first round was a free-for-all. Everybody was on the battle stage and fought to death or surrender. Many young people died. In the end, only 16 remained and were qualified. Ji Liao is quite strong. He'll finish in the top 16, said Lin Feng. Emperor Yu nodded. Even though our cultivators are not the most talented, Tiantai's disciples are quite talented. Yes, don't hesitate and attach importance to these kids, said Lin Feng indifferently. These days, what he said could change someone's life. Back in the days, Lin Feng was down on the battle stage fighting for various groups. Now he was at the top and watched the battles. At that moment, some people from Celestial Godly University looked at the members of Tiantai. Someone frowned. They didn't pay much attention to Tiantai, so nobody had noticed Lin Feng at first, but at that moment someone recognized him. Lin Feng is back, whispered that person. They were astonished. Back in the days, Lin Feng had shaken the holy city. Was he really back? Many people looked at Lin Feng and were stunned. He was back for real. Now, the holy city is chaotic. The celestial martial dynasty and the Canaan Buddhist dynasty control the town. Will he change things again? I guess it'll be difficult. The celestial martial dynasty and the Canaan Buddhist dynasty both have saints. They don't care about someone like Lin Feng. Yes, you're right, even Shiju can't do much, said several people. Lin Feng couldn't change anything anymore, it seemed. Chapter 24:10, Lang Yen and Shi Xian. The battles were fierce and tragic. Ji Liao finished 7th. He was quite strong. Lin Feng and his teachers continued chatting while watching the battles. It reminded Lin Feng of when he was younger. Lin Feng, how do you feel? Asked Mu Chen. The members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty and the Canaan Buddhist Dynasty aren't very talented, They just know more things. Ji Liao has a good understanding of cosmic energies, Lin Feng replied calmly. Brother Lin Feng, how powerful are your cosmic energies? Ling asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng laughed and said, Sis, is that so? I hope we'll exchange views on cultivation. You're my father's disciple, so you're my fellow disciple, said Ling, glancing at Mu Chen. But Lin Feng is much stronger than your daddy now. He'd be a much better teacher than me. When Lin Feng was an emperor, he had an advanced knowledge and deep understanding of cosmic energies already. Mu Chen laughed. All right, I'll teach you whatever you want to learn, Lin Feng smiled. It was Mu Chen's daughter, she was like his child. She called Lin Feng brother, but to him, she was a baby, and he wanted to take care of her. That's a promise then. Ling grinned. Of course. Lin Feng, the second round is starting, I don't think we'll be as lucky. I told him to give up if he was in danger, said Emperor Yu. Ji Liao walked over and said to Lin Feng, Master, thank you very much. Lin Feng had told him to fight as hard as he could, he had done it fearlessly and had lost. But when that attack which should have been deadly reached him, a strange kind of strength protected him. No need to thank me. Continue practicing cultivation really hard. You have potential, said Lin Feng encouragingly. Thank you very much, Master, said Ji Liao. He could sense that Lin Feng was terrifyingly strong. Ji Liao, go and watch your big fellow disciples battle, Emperor Yu told Ji Liao. He watched a young man battle. That young man was a high-level emperor. Such cultivators were strong enough to have a good ranking in town, a bit like those who were on the imperial ranking list back then. His chi is stable. Not bad, said Lin Feng, glancing at the young man. Lin Feng, he's Ruo Xie's disciple. His name is Lang Yen. He understands speed Dao strength already. His Dao is already low level. His comprehension abilities are not bad. He also understands heaviness Dao. He could finish in the top 5. Emperor Yu told Lin Feng. 2 sorts of Dao low level, how rare indeed. He could be quite strong in the future, agreed Lin Feng. But he can't finish first, that's for sure. Initially, he was the second most outstanding disciple, and the first one betrayed Tiantai back then to go to the celestial martial dynasty. Back then, Qing Lin and the others taught him a lot. Nobody thought he'd betray Tiantai, said Emperor Yu coldly, gazing into the distance. Lin Feng was stupefied. Lang Yen controlled 2 sorts of Dao, and the other one was stronger than him back then? That traitor seemed extremely strong indeed. Lin Feng's fellow disciples had even taught him a lot. And still he had betrayed Tiantai. His name is Xian. He also understands 2 sorts of Dao, very powerful sorts of Dao, Dark Light Dao and Speed Dao. His attacks are explosive. Back then, Qing Lin and the others thought they weren't suitable teachers for him, only Jian Mang was. But Jian Mang doesn't want disciples, so he only helped him a couple of times, but that's all. Xian was left alone a little, explained Emperor Yu. At the same time, Lin Feng noticed a young man in the group of people of the celestial martial dynasty. Many great emperors were sitting next to him. He didn't look proud, he looked sly and violently, wildly ambitious. No wonder my teachers are angry. If you're good to someone and they betray you, that's pretty bad, thought Lin Feng. How ungrateful. But many people were wildly ambitious and hoped to rise quickly. That Xian is good at pretending. He looked good in the past, now he looks quite sinister, said Emperor Yu calmly. Xian looked at them calmly, then at Lin Feng in a sharp way. Lin Feng grunted icily. Xian looked at him aggressively, Lin Feng looked back at him, and instantly Xian's eyes felt horribly painful and he closed them. Xian reopened his eyes, and didn't dare look at Lin Feng again. He thought, that guy is strong. He's stronger than Emperor Yu. He's even stronger than Ho Qing Lin. I wonder who he is? He didn't injure me though, he's too proud. He doesn't want to fight against me because I'm a junior. Lang Yen, shouted Lin Feng at that moment. Lang Yen raised his head. Come here, said Lin Feng. Lang Yen looked at Emperor Yu and Mu Chen, they nodded. He went over to Lin Feng. How may I call you, master? Asked Lang Yen to Lin Feng. He was seated between the 2 teachers, so he was probably very strong. It was best to be very polite. Show me your Dao, attack me, said Lin Feng, ignoring Lang Yan's question. He was interested in Dao, and put Ling aside. Lang Yan was surprised, but he nodded. He stretched out his hand, pointed at Lin Feng and attacked. His attack was very quick. Slow, said Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lang Yan had the impression he had become as slow as a snail. It felt like his hands were extremely far from Lin Feng. How strong! Lang Yan was shaking. He saw Lin Feng's finger point at him, and knew that if Lin Feng attacked him, he would be killed easily. Lang Yan was being pushed backwards. He nearly fell down, covered with cold sweat. He looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was still seated and remained motionless. His slow and fast strengths are extremely efficient, much better than mine, thought Lang Yan. He was astonished. He didn't understand how strong Lin Feng was. Please teach me, master, said Lang Yan, bowing before Lin Feng. He knew Lin Feng was extraordinary. Study the details, said Lin Feng calmly. Suddenly, Lang Yan sensed something and fell asleep. He started dreaming. He saw a leaf move towards him extremely slowly. However, it also seemed fast at the same time. He moved back, but it was useless. The leaf flew past his head. Phew! Lang Yan took a deep breath. He had thought he was going to die. I'm still alive, thought Lang Yan, shaking. Where am I? Another leaf moved towards him, but this time, it was fast and contained a hidden slowing. How strong! Lang Yan studied for a long while. The dream seemed to last forever. When Lang Yan came out, the second round was over already. He bowed before Lin Feng and said, "Thank you very much for your lesson, master." "He's your teacher's fellow disciple," Emperor Yu said to Lang Yan. "My teacher's fellow disciple?" Lang Yan was astonished. One of Tiantai's direct disciples. Which one? How strong? Could it be? Lang Yan was staring at Lin Feng, bowed deeply and said, "Thank you very much, Uncle Lin." "Ah, little boy, you're smart," said Emperor Yu. "It wasn't difficult, he's so strong," Lang Yan smiled. "All right, go and fight," said Lin Feng, waving. Lights surrounded him and Lin Feng said, "Do your best. If you defeat Shi Xian, you'll be rewarded." "I'll fight to the death." "Yes, if you can kill him, help yourself." "No need to be polite," Lin Feng said to Lang Yan. Lang Yan was astonished. Then Mu Chen and Emperor Yu looked at Lin Feng and said, "They can't." Lin Feng. "Shi Xian's social position is extraordinary." "So what? If he can kill him, then he should," replied Lin Feng naturally. People around were shaking. Lang Yan's heart was pounding. Uncle Lin Feng was really like in the legends, aggressive and strong. That guy harbored evil intentions. Tiantai had raised him, and he had betrayed them. He was even becoming a problem for Tiantai. "Lang Yan, the next one to die will be you," said Shi Xian, pointing at Lang Yan. He slowly turned around and looked at Emperor Yu, smiling icily. "Emperor Yu and Emperor Shi, you're weaker than me now. You're not qualified to be leaders. If I became the leader of Tiantai, maybe I'd manage to make it shine again." "Bastard," shouted Emperor Yu icily, "you shameless traitor. Strength is the most important thing in the world. You're weaklings, and you couldn't teach me anything. I had to find someone else to teach me. Why would I waste my time with weaklings?" said Shi Xian. He was wildly ambitious and arrogant too. "Shut the hell up," shouted Lang Yan explosively. "Today, one of us is going to die. I will fight against you." Shi Xian's sword twinkled. He wasn't as strong as a Canaan Buddhist monk, but the battle was going to be dazzling. A dazzling sword shone out, people couldn't open their eyes anymore. Intent. Lang Yan closed his eyes and remembered the dream Lin Feng had created for him. How ridiculous! When Shi Xian saw that Lang Yan had closed his eyes, he looked at him icily. "Slow," said Lang Yan. Suddenly, everything became slower around him. It was his own intent. He had control over his surroundings. Shi Xian's sword suddenly slowed down. Shi Xian frowned. Lang Yan seemed to have an advanced understanding of Tao, but so what? Die. A dozen dark swords appeared and streaked across the sky. "Slow down," shouted Lang Yan. His eyes were still firmly closed. At the same time, he struck out with his hand, and thunder rolled. A gigantic heavy hand appeared in the air and shot out. It was faster than his opponent's dark swords. One of Shi Xian's swords pierced through the gigantic hand, startling everyone. Usually, Shi Xian could kill people silently without anybody noticing, but this time he didn't manage to kill Lang Yan. Shi Xian turned into a beam of light and he flew past Lang Yan in the sky. "Where are you going?" shouted Lang Yan explosively. He released more slow energy. When cultivators became stronger, slow and fast strength could be really terrifying. "Heavy strength," shouted Lang Yan furiously. Shi Xian was stupefied when he sensed Lang Yan's Dao strength. It was already so powerful, and now it was high level, not low level anymore. How was that possible? How had Lang Yan done that? Lang Yan disappeared, then reappeared close to Shi Xian, pointing at Shi Xian with his finger. At that moment, he remembered everything Lin Feng had shown him in the dream. He had seen one finger, it didn't contain strength, but it was extremely fast. When Shi Xian saw that, his expression changed drastically. His sword descended from the sky. Sword lights flashed, but at the same time Lang Yan kept slowing him down. Blood splashed. Lang Yan had stabbed Shi Xian in the chest. Explode! Chapter 24:12. Saint Someone dared suddenly kill people ruthlessly. The crowd was astonished, took a deep breath, and continued watching. 3 figures were floating in the air. One of them was a strong cultivator with dark wings and sharp eyes. It was a great rock. Bestial chi kept emerging from his body. That's a great imperial beast, a great rock. He controls wind and death strength. His speed was incredible. He killed the referee instantly, thought the crowd. He was actually a celestial emperor. He's from Tiantai. Since when does Tiantai dare act recklessly and audaciously like that? How could they kill a member of the celestial martial dynasty like that? They're insane. Many people were looking at the members of Tiantai. In the holy city, most people who had lived there for a long time knew Lin Feng, and when they noticed Lin Feng between Emperor Yu and Mu Qin, they were stunned. They hadn't paid attention to the members of Tiantai a moment before, so they hadn't seen him. He's back. No wonder. Lin Feng had destroyed many ancient holy clans in the past. There was nothing he didn't dare do. Killing the celestial martial dynasty's referee wasn't a problem for him either. The crowd knew that Lin Feng was supported by some saints. Lin Feng is back. The battles are going to be fun. The celestial martial dynasty, the Canaan dynasty, and now Lin Feng. Will Lin Feng become the 3rd pillar of the holy city? Wondered many people. Lin Feng was supported by saints behind the scenes, and by Champion University and Tiantai officially. He had power and influence. Lin Feng. At that moment, on the side of the Canaan dynasty, a Buddhist monk looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng remembered him. He had dazzled during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. It was Do Zhan Seng. Decades had passed, and he had become a cultivator of the Xing Di layer. He was outstanding. "Brother Lin Feng, they're all staring at you," whispered Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Even though he wasn't on the battle stage today, people still paid attention to him, but he didn't care. It wasn't important to him. On the side of the celestial martial dynasty, a group of people rose up into the air. They all looked furious as they flew towards the battle stage. "Those who dare cause trouble here must die," shouted one of them icily. He released a wave of overwhelming energies. The celestial martial dynasty had organized the grand ceremony. How could they let anyone ruin the event? The celestial martial dynasty organized this event, but only to cause trouble. The referee dared commit all kinds of outrages. The grand ceremony is completely unfair. From now on, Tiantai is in charge of the grand ceremony, not the celestial martial dynasty, said someone next to Lin Feng. Instantly, the atmosphere became silent. Besides, Shi Xian and Lang Yan's battle isn't over. Nobody can get involved. It's a battle to the death, which will end only when one of them wins, said that person, as if Tiantai had already taken control of the grand ceremony. 3 people surrounded the battle stage. They didn't kill Shi Xian, they surrounded Shi Xian and Lang Yan so that they could finish their battle. What could the celestial martial dynasty say about that? Shi Xian pulled a long face. He hadn't thought he would lose against Lang Yen. He hadn't thought Tiantai could oppress the celestial martial dynasty. On the battle stage, someone stood up. Around him, other people stood up. They looked calm and composed, or at least they tried. From their eyes, one could see a terrifying chill. Who dared act so arrogantly and recklessly? Elder, that guy's name is Lin Feng. He's a genius of Champion University. He's supported by saints, and back in the days, he destroyed a few ancient holy clans. He's very strong, said someone telepathically. The person in the middle frowned and said calmly, "Those who dare cause trouble here must die." We obey. People started moving in all directions. Their chi was ominous. They were all celestial emperors. At the same time, a strong wind containing death strength started blowing. A group of people appeared behind the battle stage. The atmosphere became eerily silent and oppressive. The strong cultivators of the celestial martial dynasty all stopped moving. The elder frowned and looked at the newcomers. They were determined to confront them now? How do you want to solve the issue? Be straightforward, said the middle-aged man to Lin Feng. Have your saints come out to talk to me. You're not qualified to talk to me, said Lin Feng indifferently. The middle-aged man's face stiffened. Saints? To talk to him? How insolent? Many people were astonished. How insane, or was Lin Feng a saint? They immediately excluded the idea. Even though they couldn't see Lin Feng's cultivation level, he was probably just using a very powerful cloaking technique. Only a few decades had passed. Maybe he was a saint emperor, or even a saint emperor of the top of the Xingdi layer, but he couldn't be a saint. Saints had transcended worldliness and attained holiness, and in the past, they never saw saints in dark clouds. Saints were also usually very old. Lin Feng was much too young to be a saint. Only a few decades had passed. How could he be a cultivator of the Sheng layer? Lin Feng was probably confident because he was backed up by saints. Many people had heard that he had become a fortune shrine disciple after ranking first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds back then. It explained why he was arrogant and asked them to send saints to talk to him. The elder looked at Lin Feng icily. He said he wasn't qualified to talk to him. Even if you're a member of the Fortune Shrine, you're not qualified to talk to saints either. And even if you're talented, you can die any time, said the elder, smiling icily. Lin Feng was startled. That guy knew he was a member of the Fortune Shrine? Fortune Shrine? That's Lin Feng. Shi Xian was astonished. No wonder he found him familiar. But why did Lin Feng look so ordinary? Why didn't anyone notice him? He had no chi, he didn't look proud and sharp, like his statue. You just now guessed it was my teacher's fellow disciple, Shi Xian? He just taught me. That's how my Tao broke through. He's a peerless genius. He finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and he's a disciple of the Fortune Shrine. You'll never be as successful. You cannot imagine how strong he is, said Lang Yen icily. He could sense how terrifyingly strong Lin Feng was. He had been taught incredible things in only a few minutes. He had the impression that Lin Feng could kill anyone in a few seconds. Shi Xian's face froze. He knew Lin Feng. Lin Feng was famous in the holy city. In only a few years, he had become the most dazzling young cultivator of the city. Just now, Lin Feng had taught Lang Yen a few things. That's how Lang Yen had become stronger than him. Continue the battle, said Lin Feng indifferently. He ignored the elder and took control over the grand ceremony. Lang Yen released his chi. The face of the celestial martial dynasty's elder stiffened. Lin Feng disdained him? Shi Xian, you betrayed Tiantai. Today, you're going to die, said Lang Yen. His speed exploded. A terrifying heavy Tao strength oppressed Shi Xian. Shi Xian released sharp sword strength. Slow, said Lang Yen, closing his eyes. He felt more confident. He had instantly become stronger after Lin Feng's teaching. Now, he knew he could defeat Shi Xian. Everything around him became slower. It was Tao, it was intent, it was a sensation. Anything could become a deadly weapon at extremely high speeds. Even a leaf could become sharp at high speed. Lang Yen performed the same attack he had seen in the dream. His finger could become the sharpest sword. Metal clashed, Shi Xian's sword lights and Lang Yan's finger collided. Surprisingly, the sword lights dispersed instantly. Impossible! Shi Xian couldn't believe it. Lang Yan's attack didn't look extraordinary, it wasn't dazzling. How come it was so powerful? Lang Yan continued moving his finger towards Shi Xian's third eye. Lang Yan shouted furiously, "Die!" "Why?" shouted Shi Xian. That was his last word. He was a genius of the Huangqi layer. He was first on the imperial ranking list. He had become a member of the celestial martial dynasty, and they had organized the grand ceremony. It was supposed to be a wonderful day for him. But Shi Xian, a saint's disciple, was now dead. This time, Tiantai is taking big risks. They're messing around with saints now. A terrifying saint's strength filled the air and surrounded the whole crowd. People's hearts started pounding violently. Was a saint going to show up? Chapter 24:13. Troubles lie ahead. The saint of the celestial martial dynasty appeared and looked down at the crowd. Many people were wondering how the celestial martial dynasty was going to deal with Tiantai. "Greeting, Your Holiness of the celestial martial dynasty," said people from many different groups, standing up and bowing before the saint. In the past, saints were considered legendary cultivators, and now they had a saint in front of them. Is that a saint? I've heard that the difference between a saint and a great emperor was incredible. They aren't even comparable. Saints can easily kill entire armies of great emperors, whispered someone, looking at the saint admiringly. Before the celestial martial dynasty and the Canaan dynasty had settled in the holy city, people had heard that Lin Feng was backed up by saints. A moment before, Tiantai had killed a saint's disciple. Lang Yan watched the saint of the celestial martial dynasty nervously. However, he trusted Lin Feng. He was an incredible cultivator. He probably knew how to solve the issue. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the saint. He was surprised, because the saint of the celestial martial dynasty was a low-level saint, surprisingly. Such a cultivator had come to the holy city to create the celestial martial dynasty. That was very surprising. But a low-level saint didn't scare Lin Feng. "Brother Lin, you disappeared for so many years, and now you're back in the lower world. You're even interested in the grand ceremony." "I'm surprised," said the saint to Lin Feng, just when everyone thought he'd be furious. He even smiled calmly. However, the crowd trembled, even more than if he had killed Lin Feng immediately. They were astonished because the saint of the celestial martial dynasty called Lin Feng Brother Lin. He didn't address disrespectfully. Brother was a friendly way of addressing someone, but the most terrifying part was that it also proved one thing. The saint of the celestial martial dynasty considered Lin Feng someone of the same level. Otherwise, he wouldn't possibly have called him Brother Lin. How strong was Lin Feng then? Many people's hearts were pounding furiously. Lin Feng had disappeared for decades. Was he now a saint? People couldn't believe it. "I am from the holy city, and a member of Tiantai, so of course I come back sometimes. Since you organized the grand ceremony, it should be a fun event, and not a way to oppress everybody else. I don't mind destroying the celestial martial dynasty immediately, said Lin Feng calmly. The crowd was astounded. He didn't mind destroying the celestial martial dynasty? The celestial martial dynasty had risen in the holy city, and apart from the Canaan dynasty, nobody could resist them. Even though the celestial martial dynasty was powerful, they didn't destroy all the other groups of the holy city, as the 4 universities still existed. Disciples who respect Tiantai, who never betrayed Tiantai, have a very important position in my heart. No matter how strong they are, no matter how talented, they will all be rewarded, said Lin Feng calmly. The members of Tiantai all looked happy and clenched their fists in joy. They felt even more determined for remaining loyal. Lin Feng was back, and finally, Tiantai was going to change again. Lin Feng could talk to a saint as an equal. Everything changed. He even dared say he could destroy the celestial martial dynasty. To Lin Feng, a saint's weapon wasn't much anymore. However, he hoped that Tiantai would become extremely powerful. He had great affection for the other direct disciples of Tiantai as well. He hoped Tiantai would have no more problems in the future. He wanted to show everyone that Tiantai couldn't be offended, and he wanted to help all his friends rise. Brother Lin Feng, I'm a member of Tiantai too. Do you have a gift for me? Ling asked Lin Feng. Her eyes were twinkling. When we go back, you can choose something, Lin Feng agreed. Awesome. Ling grinned. All right, it's the Great Emperor's competition now, said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty indifferently. All the great emperors walked up to the stage. A young man appeared at the foot of the stage. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng, smiling broadly. Teacher, said Yi Chen with a smile. He looked very happy to see his teacher. Xiaochen, do your best. But stay safe, don't risk your life, said Lin Feng smiled. He waved and some strength surrounded Yi Chen. Go now. I will do my best, Yi Chen nodded. He didn't feel relaxed at all. His teacher was there, he felt even more pressured. He wanted to finish among the best cultivators, otherwise, it would be a humiliation for his teacher. He was very nervous. Because you're here, Xiaochen will be even more worried. He will be nervous because of the rankings, said Mu Chen to Lin Feng, understanding what was going on. He must listen to his heart, replied Lin Feng calmly. The fire shrine. A woman was standing in front of a stone stage. In front of her were a few saints. Since there were many problems in the continent, many groups had called their saints come back. Shrines had many saints, even if people seldom saw them. I've got news. Lin Feng is in dark clouds in the holy city. He's sly. Even if the fortune shrine supports him, he must die. I have some people watching him, we know where he usually goes. He won't be able to escape this time, said the woman calmly. All the saints understood why she made such great efforts to find Lin Feng. Because of Qiongyu. Lin Feng's real body is not weak, and could even be called strong. He's a low-level saint, but he's soon going to become a medium-level saint. I'm not sure you can easily kill him. All of you are heroes of the Qiong clan. This time, I need people who can go to the lower world to kill Lin Feng, said the woman, glancing at the saints. These people were all heroes of the fire shrine and high-level saints. She couldn't give orders to people stronger than that even if her social position was very high. The Qiong clan was a powerful clan of the fire shrine, and they had many contacts. These saints were from her clan. I don't want the fire shrine to send people straightforwardly to kill Lin Feng, because we have to make sure Qiongyu is safe, said the woman. Other people from the fire shrine might kill Lin Feng straight off, without caring about Qiongyu. I'll go. Tian Ruojian and the others aren't there this time. Killing Lin Feng should be easy, said Qiong Lin icily. He was the one who had captured Jitian the previous time. All right, I'll leave it to you then, said the woman, smiling at Qiong Lin. Thank you. Qiong Lin nodded. His task was to get Qiongyu back alive, safe and sound. Chapter 24:14. Bestial Saints help. Lin Feng was in the bleachers, watching the young people battle. He felt enthusiastic. It reminded him of his youth. Back in the days, he was also on battle stages quite often. Now, things had changed, and he would never be on a battle stage to compare his strength with other people again. As expected, Xiaochen is having a hard time, but he's ready to risk his life, sighed Mu Chen. Little Lin Feng is back, so that little boy doesn't want to disgrace his teacher. That's why he's ready to take risks. I'm afraid he will deteriorate quickly, said Emperor Yu. As expected, just as he finished talking, Yi Chen was struck hard. He was injured, hurled away, and blood splashed. He crashed to the ground. You lost. Go now, said Yi Chen's opponent. He knew Yi Chen was from Tiantai, so he didn't dare act too arrogantly. He had seen Lin Feng a moment before. He wanted to give them face. I lost. Yi Chen pulled a long face and came over to Lin Feng. He lowered his head and said, Teacher, I'm sorry I made you lose face. Come here, said Lin Feng, smiling. He didn't care about those things. Yi Chen walked over to Lin Feng. He didn't dare look at him. He felt ashamed. Little boy, how could I say anything about that? So many years have passed, and I haven't had time to teach you. I feel guilty, said Lin Feng. He released life qi, which surrounded Yi Chen and quickly healed him. Very quickly, Yi Chen felt rejuvenated. He raised his head and said, Teacher, don't say that, I'm the one who's useless. Don't feel bad. Come here, sit in front of me and watch the battles. Learn from them, said Lin Feng smiled. Yichen understood that Lin Feng truly didn't mind, but that made him feel even more guilty. The battles continued. Lin Feng sensed something approaching. He raised his head, his eyes narrowing. Danger is approaching, he thought. He had practiced the Celestial Tao Destiny technique for a while already, and he could sense and predict things. It was a very strange sensation. It wasn't like when he had talked to the saint of the Celestial Tao Destiny technique. This time, a terrifying danger lurked. If I sense danger, it means there's a high-level saint. Their original strength has already reached the maximum level, so I can't compete with them. I'll need to borrow the strength of the star world again, he thought. He considered several things. The shrines wanted him to die, especially the fire shrine. Lin Feng suddenly remembered the woman, Qiong Yu's mother. She had mentioned the holy city in the past, Qi Tian Holy Town, his friends. So was the Celestial Martial Dynasty a group which had been created by the woman to settle in the holy city? It was absolutely possible. A low-level saint had appeared in the holy city. For the lower world, that was very surprising. They had started watching everything in the city, very strange behavior. Ling, go back to your father, said Lin Feng. He was still holding her in his arms. He nodded and went back to Mu Qin. Teachers, I need to leave my body for a few minutes. Don't let anyone disturb me, Lin Feng told Mu Qin and Emperor Yu telepathically. They were both surprised, but nodded and replied, all right. Lin Feng closed his eyes, and after a few seconds he appeared in the star world. Master Ox, he called out. He disappeared and reappeared in front of the old ox. What's going on? The old ox asked Lin Feng. Master Ox, I think some high-level saints are coming for me. I need some help, said Lin Feng. The ox said to Lin Feng, at your cultivation level, you cannot compete with high-level saints, indeed. However, I told you I can't help you in the outside world. You need to ask those beasts if they are willing to help you. One is enough. Try and convince one of them. One is enough? Lin Feng was astonished. The old ox sounded very confident. He knew the beasts were incredibly strong. Lin Feng had seen how strong the 9 low-level bestial saints were. They were just medium-level saints. The high-level bestial saints were even more terrifying. They were the gods' beasts, but they were proud too. Convincing them to help would be very complicated. I'll try, said Lin Feng. He disappeared and reappeared in front of an ocean of stars. The 9 high-level bestial saints were there. Everybody! Shouted Lin Feng. The beasts ignored him. Their eyes were closed as if he didn't exist. I know that you've been imprisoned in this world for a very long time, and that the god is not here. I know you don't want to submit to anyone, especially me, the new master of this world, and I'm very weak in comparison with you. I know all this, said Lin Feng calmly. Now, I will give you an opportunity. If anyone agrees to help me, when I become a high-level saint, I'll give you the opportunity to challenge me. If you win, I'll release you and you'll be free. When Lin Feng said that, they suddenly opened their eyes and looked at Lin Feng. He sensed a terrifying bestial qi fill the air. Really? Asked one of the bestial saints. Lin Feng was proud. When I become a high-level saint, I'll give you the opportunity to challenge me. That was an opportunity? Wasn't he just trying to get them to react? Master Ox can tell you I am a man of my word, replied Lin Feng indifferently. Are you sure you want to do that? The old ox asked Lin Feng telepathically. Yes, Lin Feng nodded. He asked, Master Ox, which one is the weakest one of them? You made up your mind. Even if you choose the weakest one, it's indeed enough. But let me warn you, in the future, when you become a high-level saint, even the weakest one will easily be able to defeat you, if not kill you, said the old ox. I already made up my mind, said Lin Feng. The gigantic one, he's an ancient golden ape. Chapter 24:15. Saint's arrival. Lin Feng had convinced the golden ape, a high-level bestial saint, to help him. He didn't feel he was in danger. Since he could solve the issue easily, he continued watching the battles. After that, the Celestial Martial Dynasty sent forth a fighter. Lin Feng was startled. He knew that fighter. Back then, during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, there was a giant, Shi Yun Feng. He was now a member of the celestial martial dynasty. Shi Yunfeng was a saint emperor now. He was very strong, having reached the very top of the Xingdi layer. If the holy city hadn't changed so much in the previous years, a saint emperor would have been considered a terrifying cultivator. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list hadn't taken place too long ago, and Shi Yunfeng had already become really strong. Back then, Lin Feng remembered everybody used to say that those who did well at the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list were going to become great cultivators, and it was true. All those people were very talented and continued rising. Shi Yunfeng, back then, during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, you weren't as strong as me, and now you will still be weaker than me, a voice proclaimed. A Buddhist monk walked forwards. It was Do Zhansing, now a strong cultivator of the Canaan Buddhist clan. He was also a saint emperor at the top of the Xingdi layer. Back in the days, at the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, he had ranked better than Shi Yunfeng. Lin Feng, it's a pity that you're not fighting today. I wonder how strong you are, and Chu Chun Qiu, said Do Zhansing, looking at the members of Tiantai. Those people were now so strong. Watching an old friend fight is a great opportunity too, Lin Feng smiled. At that moment, someone shouted, Lin Feng, old buddy. You came back and you didn't tell me. A strong cultivator arrived as a strong wind started blowing. He was topless. Lin Feng grinned, Tentai, couldn't you put on some clothes? Hee, I like being topless, said Tentai. He looked straightforward and good-natured as usual. He landed on the battle stage. Now that Lin Feng is not participating, I'll finish first. We'll see if you're strong enough, said Do Zhanseng. Ancestor, how strong is the cultivator of Champion University? Lin Feng asked Ancestor Shirtian. Those guys are extraordinarily talented. They're as strong as me. Some of them are even stronger than me. Champion University has some incredible geniuses. You killed Ji Chang, and now nobody can compete with those people, Ancestor Shirtian sighed. Some incredible people came from Champion University. Some of them had died or joined the Celestial Martial Dynasty when the Holy City had become chaotic. All right, said Lin Feng nodding. I owe Champion University, but some things must be changed in Champion University too. Ancestor Zhu Tian, you're very strong. Why don't you fight personally for the university? Ancestor Zhu Tian's face stiffened, and he blushed. He hadn't thought Lin Feng would come back. Since Lin Feng had come back, he had remained silent, saying absolutely nothing. But Lin Feng had heard him before arriving. Some people were incredibly important in Lin Feng's life, his wives, his teachers, his fellow disciples. In the past, Ancestor Zhu Tian was relatively respectful, but now he had humiliated Lin Feng's teachers and was very impolite. Lin Feng couldn't accept that. He didn't want to do anything against Champion University. He owed them, but he had to do something about Ancestor Zhu Tian. Lin Feng, you're a student of Champion University. Why don't you fight for it? Said Ancestor Zhu Tian. He felt embarrassed, but he was an elder. Lin Feng wasn't being polite to him. Me? Lin Feng smiled. Ancestor Zhu Tian looked at Lin Feng and suddenly, he had the impression everything around him had become darkness and death. You said me? Said a voice in his head. Ancestor Zhu Tian shouted quickly, No, let me off. Everything became normal again. Lin Feng was just looking at him and smiling indifferently. Ancestor Zhu Tian was covered with cold sweat, his face as white as a sheet of paper. He looked like he had almost died. Everybody was staring at him. What's wrong, Ancestor? Asked Lin Feng. However, he sounded a bit cold. Ancestor Zhu Tian lowered his head. He didn't dare look at Lin Feng. How could Lin Feng be so strong? The saint. Lin Feng had to be a saint. Ancestor Zhu Tian's heart was pounding violently. A moment before, the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty had talked to him as equals. He had hoped that he was talking that way because he was a disciple of the Fortune Shrine. But now his hopes were ruined. Lin Feng was a saint. He was as strong as the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. How could he go onto the battle stage? Ancestor, you shouldn't bully people who are weaker than you, said Lin Feng indifferently. He didn't look at him anymore. The other ancestors also noticed it, but they all remained silent. Lin Feng was back. Saints talked to him as equals, and ancestor Zhu Tian had infuriated him. The other ancestors decided to let nature take its course. After all, Lin Feng and Champion University's relations were deep. They didn't want that to change. They didn't want Lin Feng to hold a grudge against Champion University either. The battle started. At that level, things were completely different. There was no group battle, only one-on-ones. It would have been too destructive otherwise. Shi Yunfeng understands Stone Dao. His defense and attacks are terrifying. When he becomes a saint, it will probably become Earth Original Strength, murmured Lin Feng, watching Shi Yunfeng fight. When becoming a saint, a cultivator's strengths all had to turn into original strength. Stone Dao became Earth Original Strength. Chapter 24:16. Killing to the inhabitants of the Holy City, a group of saints was a terrifying and astonishing thing to see. Their hearts were racing. Lin Feng, proclaimed a voice which sounded like thunder and made people's bodies shake even more. Lin Feng, they're here for Lin Feng. It proves that the saint of the celestial martial dynasty knew that. The people trembled even more. This group of saints didn't come in peace. Lin Feng, get ready to escape, said Mu Chen and Emperor Yu. They were both grimacing. Even though they didn't know how strong these people were, they could sense how terrifying they were, and they wanted to kill Lin Feng. At that moment, Lin Feng raised his head, he looking completely unperturbed. He looked at the leader of the group, Qiong Lin from the Fire Shrine. Back then, he had captured Jitian and imprisoned him. 1 high-level saint, 3 low-level saints, 5 half-saints, they really overestimated me, he thought. If the Fire Shrine had managed to get a high-level saint to come for Lin Feng, it meant they took the issue extremely seriously. It was dark clouds, so even if Lin Feng contacted the Fortune Shrine or Tian Ruojian, they wouldn't be able to arrive within a short time. The Fire Shrine couldn't know that Lin Feng had obtained something great in the godly grave, though. He now possessed the star-studded sky world, and the star god had transmitted his knowledge to him. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the saint of the celestial martial dynasty, asking, "You're a member of the Fire Shrine?" "Lin Feng, I'm not from the Fire Shrine. They just hired me to watch Tian Tai and gather information about you. Regarding the Holy City, I'm happy here. The Qi is good. You can't escape anymore, so my mission will soon be over," said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty calmly. People around were astonished. So that's how things were. The shrines wanted to kill Lin Feng, and the celestial martial dynasty was there to spy on him. Why did the shrines, who controlled the world, want to kill Lin Feng? What had he done to them? The crowd looked at the group of saints in the sky in awe and veneration. Not only were those people saints, but they were also members of shrines. "If you release Qiongyu, apart from you, we will not bear recriminations against other people," Qiong Lin stated loudly. He looked imposing and awe-inspiring. Lin Feng smiled coolly. "I see, so the shrine wants to attack ordinary people again?" "It all depends on you," said Qiong Lin coldly. "Is that so?" said Lin Feng. He had a knowing smile on the corner of his mouth. He waved and said, "Teachers, move away." Little Lin Feng, Mu Chen, Emperor Yu, and the others looked extremely worried. Lin Feng wanted to fight against a shrine? How could he? "Move away. I can solve the issue," said Lin Feng calmly. Mu Chen and the others were astonished, but they nodded and moved away. Those beasts were much, much stronger than he had imagined. The golden ape controlled several sorts of original strength, all at the maximum level. He was a terrifying high-level bestial saint. "Kill!" Lin Feng said firmly. The ape crushed Qiong Lin in his hand, crackling sounds spread out. He drew his hand back and looked at the arms sticking out of his closed hand. The ape growled ferociously. "No!" Qiong Lin shouted desperately. He was devastated. He released strength while shouting, but gradually his voice grew more and more faint. When the ape opened his hand, only a few threads of fire chi were left. Qiong Lin had disappeared. Phew! The crowd was astonished and took a deep breath. That was a truly terrifying saint. He could kill a saint without moving. He could shout and kill gigantic groups of people. The strong cultivators of the Fire Shrine were astonished. Lin Feng had a protector who was a peerless saint. Qiong Lin was a high-level saint and had been killed in the blink of an eye. The members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, Tiantai, and Champion University were astonished too. At that moment, the gigantic figure shrank down again. The ape was now a mere 3 meters high, standing calmly behind Lin Feng. The crowd was just flabbergasted. Lin Feng was back, and saints could be killed? Behind him was a terrifying bestial saint Lin Feng had just told him to kill, and his protector had killed that saint from a shrine. Chapter 24:17. Saint Lin Feng. The atmosphere became eerily silent. Everybody had suddenly forgotten about the grand ceremony. The members of the fire shrine were staring at the gigantic ape behind Lin Feng, trembling now. They knew how strong Lin Feng was, unrivaled in his cultivation. They also knew how strong any high-level saint was, especially high-level saints from shrines, and they were from the fire shrine. A high-level saint had at least one kind of original strength at the maximum level, and Qiong Lin had been killed in one strike. One strike and Qiong Lin had died. Piss off now. Tell that woman that we'll settle accounts. Don't cause trouble to anyone else, or she will receive Qiong Yu's corpse, said Lin Feng icily. The members of the fire shrine all grimaced. Lin Feng was telling them to piss off and was threatening them. The woman had sent such a big army, convinced they would manage to kill Lin Feng. However, nobody had thought such a thing would happen. Qiong Lin, a high-level saint, had been killed because a terrifying cultivator protected Lin Feng. Could they kill Lin Feng now? They could already consider themselves lucky for not dying here. Let's go, said one of them. They quickly turned around and left. They had come looking dignified and majestic. They left in abject fear. Many people were astonished. Saints had come looking dignified and majestic. Many people had looked at them as if they were gods, and their strongest cultivator had promptly been killed. And now Lin Feng had told them to piss off. Everybody turned and looked at Lin Feng. What had Lin Feng gone through in the previous decades? How had he changed so much? The crowd couldn't believe it. And who was that terrifying cultivator protecting him? Celestial Martial Dynasty Saint, said Lin Feng at that moment. He smiled icily. The Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint's face froze unnaturally. Brother Lin, you're extraordinary as expected, said the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, smiling awkwardly. He didn't look as majestic as before. The golden ape behind Lin Feng could kill him effortlessly. Your Excellency, I vividly remember what you just said, smiled Lin Feng. The Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint's mouth twitched. He didn't know what to say. He was furious at the fire shrine. They hadn't been able to deal with Lin Feng. Of course, they hadn't known Lin Feng would be backed up by such a terrifying cultivator. Lin Feng, I'll tell you directly. If that bestial saint wants to kill me, I naturally can't do anything against him. That'd be my destiny. Anyway, that being the case, the Celestial Martial Dynasty is in the Holy City, and it won't change anything. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty remained calm and continued, Anyway, if that terrifying bestial saint kills me, what can I do? You think too highly of yourself, said Lin Feng, smiling icily. He said calmly, Since you say that, I'll give you an opportunity. It's the grand ceremony today. The younger disciples are all done fighting. You and me, let's fight. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was stunned. Lin Feng wanted to fight against him? He didn't know much about Lin Feng. He only knew he was very talented and that the shrines wanted to kill him. But in any case, the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty had been a saint for thousands of years. Even if he couldn't defeat Lin Feng, he was convinced Lin Feng wouldn't be able to kill him. Only that golden ape posed a threat to him. Really? Asked the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Naturally, said Lin Feng, flashing forwards. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng wanted to challenge the saint? He was a low-level saint. Lin Feng had disappeared for decades. He couldn't be a low-level saint. He was definitely a half-saint, right? Everybody was curious. They thought that Lin Feng dared act like that because he was a member of the Fortune Shrine, and the Fortune Shrine protected him. They didn't think that Lin Feng had become a saint in just a few decades. But Lin Feng was challenging the saint of the celestial martial dynasty. "All right," said the saint, slowly walking forwards. It felt like the earth and the sky were on the verge of freezing. "Let's see how strong a genius of the fortune shrine is," said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty, staring at Lin Feng. He sounded cold and detached. He flashed forwards as everything froze around him. A layer of ice appeared around Lin Feng's body, and he felt his soul start to freeze. Ice strength was trying to prevent him from releasing his own strength. The celestial martial dynasty's saint turned into a beam of light. His robe was covered by a layer of ice, glittering in the light. He threw himself at Lin Feng. "Die!" A gigantic ice cauldron moved towards Lin Feng. The ice on the cauldron turned into threads of original ice strength. Each thread seemed like it could freeze a cultivator's soul. "Slow!" Lin Feng released slow strength, and the threads of ice chi slowed down. Lin Feng could see them more distinctly. He could also see the saint's movements more clearly. Lin Feng moved too, raising his finger and releasing absorbing strength. A dragon which absorbed everything in his way moved towards the cauldron. The two sorts of original strengths collided and shattered. Lin Feng was staring at his opponent. He looked enigmatic and unfathomable. "Throne!" shouted the celestial martial dynasty's saint loftily. An ice throne appeared and rotated around him. It contained King Qi. "Go in," said Lin Feng. The celestial martial dynasty's saint sensed the world around him turn into an illusion. Everything around him turned into darkness. "Celestial life peeling," said Lin Feng coldly. The celestial martial dynasty's saint was horrified as he sensed his life being peeled off. "How is this possible? My King Dao Qi." The saint was astonished. He had a king-type body, he had a king life, his qi was more powerful, he was extremely strong and talented. And yet Lin Feng was peeling off his King Dao. As expected, the celestial Dao destiny technique is terrifying. Not only do I sense what might happen in the future, but I can also use it to kill people by destroying their destiny, thought Lin Feng. It was one of the last things he had studied, but it was also one of the things he had studied for the longest time, decades. He only understood the basics so far. "I'm done playing with you," said Lin Feng indifferently. He pointed at the celestial martial dynasty saint and moved in a blur of motion. He condensed fast strength in his hand and accelerated, moving so fast it was impossible to follow him with the eye. And the celestial martial dynasty's saint was still affected by the slow strength. "Playing with me?" The celestial martial dynasty's saint pulled a long face. He had been a low-level saint for so many years, and Lin Feng said he was playing with him? 1,000,000 death stamps turned into hell and surrounded him. The celestial martial dynasty's saint shouted furiously. His throne of ice was behind him. He looked like an ice king. A terrifying sword chi moved towards him. It was Lin Feng's ruler's sword. The throne exploded, and the ice as well. "Piss off," shouted the celestial martial dynasty's saint. He raised his hand and released ice original strength. He wanted to freeze Lin Feng. "Absorb!" Lin Feng's fist collided with his hand, turned into a vortex and absorbed his king qi. The celestial martial dynasty's saint's face turned deathly pale as he stared at Lin Feng. He hadn't thought he would feel so weak against Lin Feng. "And you dared act arrogantly in front of me," said Lin Feng icily. He looked at the celestial martial dynasty's saint disdainfully. These days, Lin Feng released attacks with all his body parts, his eyes, his hands. It was difficult to defend against him. Lin Feng controlled so many sorts of original strength, he could attack without really probing. Attacking was natural for him. The celestial martial dynasty's saint was being attacked from all sides, and his qi was being absorbed. He was being absorbed in Lin Feng's vortex, and then he disappeared into it entirely. How is that possible? The members of the celestial martial dynasty were astonished and terrified. A saint had just been absorbed? Lin Feng rolled up his sleeves and slowly walked back to the members of Tiantai. He looked like a peerless and aggressive cultivator. The crowd realized that Lin Feng wasn't a gentle young man anymore. He had become almost peerless. He had become a real king. Lin Feng looked like a real king. He was Saint Lin Feng. Chapter 24:18, I won't see anyone. The crowd was even more astonished than when the gigantic golden ape had killed Qiong Lin, a high-level saint. Lin Feng had disappeared dozens of years. When he had left, he was still a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer. He had dazzled during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, then he had finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. He had come back and destroyed some ancient holy clans, but the crowd mainly remembered Lin Feng as a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer and later as a great emperor. A few decades was nothing to become a saint. Saints were legendary cultivators, and especially a level 2 saint. The inhabitants of the holy city didn't even dare imagine that, but Lin Feng had done it. Lin Feng had just killed a low-level saint in front of them, not to mention a saint who was at the top of a powerful group in the holy city, the Celestial Martial Dynasty. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was dead, so the Celestial Martial Dynasty would probably collapse at some point. The crowd looked at Lin Feng and at the members of Tiantai. Tiantai was going to continue rising. When a man attains the Tao, even his pets ascend to heaven. Lin Feng had attained enlightenment, so Tiantai rode on his success, too. The golden ape was surprised. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng was so strong. This guy had managed to become the new leader of the Star World. He didn't have an undeserved reputation. Mu Chen, Emperor Yu, and the others were stunned, gaping at Lin Feng. They had never thought Lin Feng would be so talented. He had changed so quickly. Little Lin Feng, I'm really surprised, said Mu Chen, taking a deep breath. Indeed, I still remember everything we went through. The Qitian Peak, the meeting of the emperors. Back then he made a great show of your talents, and then we came to the great world, and continued being oppressed. However, little Lin Feng continued rising. He became stronger and stronger. Back then, I still didn't think he'd become a saint so quickly. I hadn't thought a saint would appear in Tiantai, to be honest. Emperor Yu was astonished. His disciple was a saint? It was like a dream. I want to be like my teacher, said Yi Chen, clenching his fists. He felt so weak. Uncle Lin Feng is so strong. Lang Yen was astonished and pleasantly surprised. Tiantai was so lucky. The crowd forgot all about the Celestial Martial Dynasty and their grand ceremony. I never thought Lin Feng would already be so strong, sighed Do Zhanseng. He was proud and talented, but he felt like an insect in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. He said calmly, I don't care about the Celestial Martial Dynasty. However, I will destroy all those who betrayed Tiantai. All the members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty shook. They felt ridiculous, insignificant, and ashamed. I am a student of Champion University, but I can't tolerate seeing petty people at the top of the hierarchy in Champion University, replied Lin Feng calmly. The ancestors were surprised, but not much. They nodded, we understand. I want to report something, said someone at that moment. That person was standing at the gate. Speak, replied Mu Chen. The new leader of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, as well as some founding members, are here with some people who betrayed Tiantai. They're here to apologize, said that person. The crowd understood how the Celestial Martial Dynasty felt. They were afraid of Lin Feng. They even came to apologize. They all looked at Lin Feng and Lin Feng said, I'm not seeing them. Just tell them 3 words. Conduct yourselves well. Yes, replied the disciple. The crowd shuddered. Those who had betrayed Tiantai were probably going to go through hardships. Also, I heard that the Canaan dynasty's saint wanted to come to pay you a visit, said the disciple. The crowd shook again. A saint wanted to come to pay them a visit? Tell them that I won't receive guests for 7 days. They can come in 7 days and after, said Lin Feng. The disciple bowed and left. People were astonished. A saint wanted to come and pay Lin Feng a visit, and Lin Feng just said he wouldn't see anyone for 7 days. How incredible! The ancestors of Champion University were astonished too. If they hadn't met Lin Feng when he was much weaker, they would have never met him. Chapter 24:19. Lecture in the central part of Tiantai was a field. Many disciples gathered there, they standing in 2 gigantic lines. Between them were praying mats. They all looked at a young man with admiration. He was wearing white clothes, he looked clean, calm, and composed. However, everybody knew that that young man could kill low-level saints easily. He had destroyed some shrine's members, too. He had also refused to see a saint because he was busy. He was a living legend. Now he was going to teach them some concepts. How incredible! One could well imagine how happy the crowd was. I've heard that Brother Lang Yen received some knowledge from him. That's how he defeated Shi Xian. He progressed a lot after receiving teacher Lin Feng's transmissions. In a few seconds, he can probably make you progress more than you would in 10 years by practicing really hard, thought someone. Such opportunities were extremely rare. Sit down, said Lin Feng, smiling patiently. He didn't sound stuffy at all, rather amiable and casual, but the disciples were nervous. They all sat down on the praying mats and looked at Lin Feng. You all have different cultivation levels. You all practice different types of cultivation. I can't make a uniform lecture for you. However, I want to say a few things. When I started practicing cultivation, my cultivation level was much lower than yours. I started at the Qi layer. Back in the days, I admired cultivators. For me, cultivators of the Shen Qi layer and the Tian Qi layer were extraordinary cultivators. Such levels were out of reach for me. If I hadn't thought that way, I don't think I would have progressed at all. I would have never become a Tian level cultivator. But now I'm a saint. What is the Tian Qi layer to me? Lin Feng began calmly. People were shaking. Indeed, they couldn't forget that Lin Feng used to be extremely weak back in the days. He had admired other people too. Now he was much powerful than the people of the Tian Qi layer whom he had admired once. Don't think that you can't surpass me even if you are slow-witted. Never give up. Grand talents mature slowly. Many people are slow-witted, but they still have good aptitudes. They practice slowly, but they can also become very strong. Talent is helpful until a certain point, that's all. Talent cannot determine which cultivation level you'll reach in your life. What does is your heart, said Lin Feng. Many people felt extremely determined. Your heart, that's your intent. Your intent makes you unbreakable. You can bend but not break. But you also need to be realistic. Cultivation is something you do step by step. You must be determined to become better each day. Someday, you'll reach the end. Phew! People were extremely excited. They all breathed quickly. Their hearts were pounding. Reach the end? Alright, I just wanted to tell you those things. If you have any question, you can ask me, smiled Lin Feng. Don't feel ill at ease, ask me anything. Teacher, said a bald young man standing up quickly. Everybody looked at him. He looked nervous and kept scratching his head. Teacher, I'm so nervous, sorry. I am now a high-level emperor. I understand Earth cosmic energy. However, I can't understand Tao. How do I understand Tao and how do I know which Tao is mine? Most people understood Tao when they were great emperors, but some talented and outstanding young people understood Tao when they were still emperors, like Lin Feng, Chu Chunqiu, and Ji Chang had back in the days. Come here and use your best strength to attack me. Let me sense your cosmic energies, said Lin Feng to that young man. He was surprised and nodded. Teacher, I don't want to be disrespectful. He bowed before Lin Feng and attacked him. A powerful heavy strength moved towards Lin Feng. The bald young man's fist became as heavy as a mountain. His strength was oppressive like an avalanche. Of course, it couldn't do anything to Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood up and the bald young man sensed an oppressive strength surround him. It was painful. His strength is 1,000,000,000 times more powerful than mine. It's also a type of cosmic energy, thought the bald young man. Lin Feng moved towards him, surrounding him with the force of a landslide and the power of a tidal wave. It was as if the earth had oppressed him. Tao is an accumulation. To understand Tao, you must accumulate enough strength. You can't just study and learn Tao like this. I first understood life and death Tao. I remember when I understood Tao, I was on the battlefield of the celestial country. I killed many strong cultivators before understanding Tao. There were mountains of corpses around me. Other people can only give you pieces of advice regarding Tao, but they can't help you find your Tao. Everybody listened to Lin Feng. As Lin Feng walked towards the young man, the strength became too oppressive, and he fell down on his butt. When the strength disappeared, he closed his eyes and visualized the strength Lin Feng had just used, the pure earth intent he had released. "You're worth teaching," smiled Lin Feng. He walked back to his original seat. He had helped the bald young man sense the strength he studied, so now he had to study it on his own. Lin Feng couldn't study for him. Teacher Lin Feng is teaching us personally, we have to seize this opportunity. It's extremely rare, realized many disciples. "Teacher, I'm a low-level emperor, and I've been stuck at this level for a very long time. I can't break through. What to do?" asked someone standing up. "How long haven't you gone traveling?" asked Lin Feng. 2 years. "During those 2 years, you only practiced and meditated alone, and you haven't broken through?" asked Lin Feng. "Indeed, I can't break through. I can sense my cosmic energies are powerful enough, though." "Come here," said Lin Feng casually. That student walked towards Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lin Feng moved like the wind. A terrifying strength surrounded that cultivator and corroded his intent. He had the impression he was going to die. He didn't have time to react, but it was an opportunity too. If he were slightly stronger, he would be able to dodge. "No!" shouted that student, furiously. Then he moved with the wind, changing his position and releasing humming sword lights all around himself. But he still felt danger closing on him. Another wave of chi rolled towards him. It descended from the sky and moved towards his shoulders as fast as lightning. Wind. That cultivator released wind strength and moved as fast as he could, but as soon as he dodged, more strength moved towards him. It didn't stop, strength kept attacking him. At the same time, he looked at Lin Feng, who was already seated on a praying mat. The crowd was astonished. That disciple was fighting against nothing in a frenzy. He looked crazy. He has the impression he's going to die. It's definitely an illusion. The goal is to unleash his full potential as if he were about to die. The teacher is oppressing him, he has to dodge. If he doesn't, he will die. The crowd understood. The teacher wanted to see how long he would persevere. At that moment, the air hummed, and a stronger chi rolled out. The crowd frowned. It broke through. The illusion disappeared, and the disciple stopped awkwardly. His cosmic energies hummed around him. He was astonished as he understood what was happening to him. He bowed before Lin Feng and said, "Thank you very much, teacher." "You understand now?" asked Lin Feng. "I understand. You oppressed me, but it wasn't real. It just made me think I was going to die. I had only 2 options, surpass myself and break through, or die." "Indeed. Die or break through. But to achieve that, you must have reached a certain level too. Your cosmic energies had to be at the top already. This time, you only needed a little bit of pressure. To achieve that, you need to go out and travel. That's why cultivators travel all the time. You need to fight against enemies to become stronger. Risking your life is often part of the game. That's how you unleash your full potential, when your enemies oppress you." Everybody listened carefully. Lin Feng taught new things to everyone. That lecture lasted for 3 days. However, for them, it felt as if they had saved 30 years. Everybody was in awe of Lin Feng. It was incredible to spend time with a legendary cultivator. They would always respect him, they would never betray Tian Tai. They owed Tian Tai for this chance. Chapter 24:20, Flying to the Top. After the lecture, Lin Feng gave his teachers many spells, skills, techniques, and weapons. He only gave them great ones. He even gave them some saint's weapons he had obtained after killing people. "Little Lin Feng, those things are good because you're in Tian Tai, but if you're not here, people will annihilate us for those items. Like when you gave Lang Yen a saint's weapon in front of everybody, that was scary. Do you really think it's a good thing for Lang Yen to have a saint's weapon?" asked Mu Chen, easily seeing the problem. "Teacher, I understand what you mean. I also thought about that. That's why I gave Lang Yen a protective saint's weapon. He can't use it to attack, he can only use to protect himself. Most cultivators can't do anything to him. When I'm traveling, I will leave 9 low-level bestial saints here to protect Tian Tai. They will become Tian Tai's protectors. I'm sure they'll be able to protect Tian Tai for thousands of years, no matter what happens. High-level saints are unlikely to come to the lower world. 9 bestial saints as protectors. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu were astonished. All right, indeed, nobody can do anything to Tiantai with such cultivators, unless shrines come personally. The fire shrine is the shrine with which I have the most problems. I kidnapped a descendant of the fire shrine. That's why they don't dare try anything too risky. They will probably not try anything for the time being. In the future, if my relations with the fire shrine worsen, I will take care of Tiantai. All right, sounds like a plan, said Mu Chen, smiling and nodding. In less than 100 years, Tiantai will become one of the strongest groups, I think. Teacher, do you have any news from my fellow disciples? Asked Lin Feng. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu remained silent. Lin Feng looked at their expressions and asked, "What is going on, and what are you hiding from me, teachers? Tell me." Little Lin Feng, Tianqi is, Mu Chen sighed. Lin Feng's face stiffened. What's wrong with him? There's a Buddhist mountain in the holy city. The legend says you need to climb up 99,999 steps to achieve enlightenment as a Buddhist cultivator. You've heard of that legend, right? Indeed. Lin Feng nodded. The first time he had arrived in the holy city, Huang Fulong and Tantai had told him about it. It was said that those who had needed the least time to get to the top had done it in 3 years. It was impossible to do it by flying. The cultivators who tried died. There was also another legend which said that there was a Peerless Buddha at the top, but that many people who managed to get to the top became peerless demons. Tianqi had tried to climb up that mountain many times. He had also failed repeatedly. Tianqi managed to get to the top. He didn't become a Buddha, he became a demon. He came back once, kowtowed 3 times banging his head on the ground, then he said he had nothing to do with his teachers and fellow disciples anymore, said Mu Chen. It was horrible for him to think about. Tianqi was one of his direct disciples, like a son to him. Tianqi used to be gentle and soft, and now he had become a demon, so he had decided to break off all ties. When did that happen? Lin Feng asked grimly. Just before the Canaan dynasty started rising. It is said that the rising of the Canaan dynasty has something to do with the Buddhist mountain, said Mu Chen. Where is Tianqi? Asked Lin Feng. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from him since he left. Lin Feng frowned. He gazed into the distance and suddenly shouted, Canaan dynasty's leader, hurry up and come to Tiantai to see me. Everybody in the holy city heard his voice. The ground trembled at his words. Canaan dynasty's leader, hurry up and come to Tiantai to see me. His voice echoed for a long time. Many people raised their heads and shuddered in fear. That was probably Lin Feng's voice. He was the only one who could shout so loudly and especially make the leader of the Canaan dynasty come to Tiantai. Many people sighed. At that cultivation level, people seemed to belong to another world. Nothing could stop them. As expected, after a short time, a group of people from the Canaan dynasty arrived and stopped outside of Tiantai. They didn't land. Someone directly said icily, "What is the Canaan dynasty's relationship with the Buddhist mountain?" Those people looked at Lin Feng in surprise. The leader of the group was the saint. He was startled too. He had watched Lin Feng had directly kill the celestial martial dynasty's saint during the grand ceremony, so he didn't want to offend him. At the beginning, the Canaan dynasty was the Canaan Buddhist clan. Then a disciple climbed up the mountain and obtained a sutra. Then he practiced really hard, and that's what happened, someone said to Lin Feng. You want to die, shouted Lin Feng icily. A strong wind blew past and beheaded that person. Blood splashed, and he died instantly. The others' faces turned deathly pale. If you continue lying, I'll kill you all, said Lin Feng icily. He said to the saint, Speak. The saint tried to keep calm. He said to Lin Feng, I'm the cultivator of the Buddhist mountain he meant. Then I came down, I went to the Canaan Buddhist clan and I granted them many techniques. Then I changed their name. You're a Buddhist monk, you're not a demon cultivator? Asked Lin Feng icily. He looked startled and said, Buddhism is demon cultivation. Go. Bring me to the Buddhist mountain, said Lin Feng coldly. The saint said, You want to walk up the mountain? I want to fly straight to the top, replied Lin Feng. You don't respect the big Buddha, said that person, smiling coldly. If Buddhism is demon cultivation, Buddhists need respect. Chapter 24-21. Situation. Lin Feng raised his head and heard the Buddhist cultivator shout loudly. The atmosphere trembled. He had the impression his soul was going to explode. However, Lin Feng shouted out too, and the force of his voice dashed to the skies and collided with the Buddhist cultivator's loud shout. However, it was just the beginning. After that, a gigantic ancient golden Buddha descended from the sky and oppressed everything. His hand blotted out the sky and bore down on Lin Feng. It felt like the earth and the sky were on the verge of collapse. What a domineering attack. Lin Feng grunted icily. He released sword strength, which streaked across the sky and destroyed the Buddhist hand imprint instantly. The Brahma voice's sound waves continued rolling out in waves. Suddenly, Lin Feng was alone in an empty space and could only hear the Brahma voice. 108 Sakyamanis appeared and chanted mantras unceasingly. They wanted him to give up everything and die happily. Lin Feng was disgusted by this kind of technique. Buddhist cultivators tried to kill people by making them give up. It was a horrible feeling. Lin Feng disappeared. The 108 Sakyamanis shot towards Lin Feng. He raised his hands. "Slow," said Lin Feng. Everything around him slowed down. At the same time, he released a terrifying sword intent which contained God's strength. His manifesting speed was incredible. It was like he was merely releasing dazzling beam of lights. The ancient Buddhas exploded one after another. They turned into a golden ocean, which rolled in waves towards Lin Feng, the roar of the waves threatening to drown earth and sky. The mantra sound wave continued floating all around him. Could it be that there's no Peerless Buddha here? It seems like only the attacks of a Peerless Buddha are left, but an actual person, thought Lin Feng. He didn't see his opponent at all. The attacks had definitely been created by a very strong cultivator, probably a high-level Buddha saint, or the attacks he had left wouldn't have been so powerful. Sword lights kept flashing around Lin Feng. He jumped into the golden ocean and continued walking. Only Buddhist enlightenment could allow one to escape from the boundless sea of bitterness, but Lin Feng wasn't interested. His figure flickered. The sea of bitterness was boundless. There were dazzling golden lights everywhere, corroding away. People from the outside couldn't see the top of the Buddhist mountain at all. Lin Feng and the ancient Buddha disappeared together. Lin Feng traveled for days. He didn't turn around. He ended up in many illusions, but Lin Feng overcame every obstacle. Lin Feng was still walking slowly. Finally, the sea of bitterness disappeared, and he finally landed at the top of the mountain. This the Buddhist mountain? Lin Feng looked around. He was surprised. He smiled icily. This was a holy place for Buddhist cultivators. Bullshit. It was an evil and demonic place. On the top of the mountain were several buildings. Some people came out of a building, all of them Buddhist monks. However, Lin Feng smiled icily when he saw them. They were wearing Buddhist clothes, but their demon chi rolled in waves around them. "I would have never thought that this place would be a sink of iniquity," said Lin Feng calmly. "Where is Tian Chi? I wouldn't have thought someone would arrive by air." "Unfortunately, you're not a Buddhist cultivator," sighed those people. "Your Excellency, please go back. You shouldn't be here." "Who should come here then?" asked Lin Feng. "People who want to achieve Buddhist enlightenment," replied that person. "Why do people who want to achieve Buddhist enlightenment turn into demons?" asked Lin Feng. "They achieve supreme enlightenment. After they achieve supreme enlightenment, they don't become Buddhas, they become demons. How ridiculous." "Where's Tian Chi?" asked Lin Feng. He didn't have time to talk about this. There hasn't been any saint in the holy city for a very long time, but Buddhist monks who come to the Buddhist mountain become great demon Buddhas and become saints. "Isn't that supreme enlightenment?" asked that person, ignoring Lin Feng. They were all strong, all low-level saints. If Lin Feng hadn't come personally, he would have never known there were such strong cultivators here. Buddha? Demon? Lin Feng looked furious. He took out his great demon halberd of desolation, and demon strength suddenly rolled in waves. He suddenly looked like a peerless demon. He said icily, "If you continue making me waste my time, I'll destroy the Buddhist mountain." Those people were stupefied. This strong cultivator was a demon cultivator. Tian Qi is there, said that person, pointing at a building. Lin Feng's godly awareness rolled out, crackling sounds spread in the air. He entered the building and saw a cultivator with long black hair seated cross-legged. The man suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Brother Lin Feng, what are you doing here?" Lin Feng put his great demon halberd of desolation away and walked forwards. The ground under his feet shattered. He destroyed the building, and the demon cultivator appeared alone in front of Lin Feng. It was Tian Qi. He had completely changed. He looked like a demon now. Second fellow disciple. Lin Feng was seething. Back in the days, Tian Qi used to smile all the time. Now, he had completely changed. You go back. "I'm not your second fellow disciple anymore," said Tian Qi indifferently. Lin Feng suddenly felt so sad to hear that. He was probably as sad as his teachers. "Why?" asked Lin Feng. "I don't care about worldly affairs anymore. I only care about strength. In only a few dozens of years, I became a saint. I'm becoming extremely strong," said Tian Qi calmly. "I will understand," said Lin Feng, turning around. He landed in front of the flight of long stairs. There were 99,999 steps on it. Lin Feng moved like the wind and descended the flight of stairs. After a short time, he arrived at the foot of the flight of stairs. He looked up at the flight of stairs and started climbing it again. He wanted to see what people who went through that test experienced. "Those who are not honest and serious can't achieve enlightenment," said a voice. Lin Feng didn't care. He continued walking up. He could sense a strange strength, but the voice was right actually. Without being completely honest, it was impossible to achieve enlightenment. However, Lin Feng was different, because he was stronger than the flight of stairs. Nothing could stop him. 33,333 steps. People who make it here must be very honest and have faith. They believe. Buddhist cultivators are usually very determined and honest. My second fellow disciple is that kind of person too, thought Lin Feng. He continued walking up. There were several tests as he walked up the stairs, illusions which tested his ambition, intent, honesty, etc. He had to pass all the tests to get the top. It wasn't an easy test, but Tian Qi had passed it long ago. Lin Feng was on the 66,666 step. He was starting to experience Buddhist cultivators' lives in illusions. Those lives were all about faith. The only way to continue walking up was faith. Lin Feng was surprised by some illusions too. For example, a Buddhist monk had practiced compassion every day. He had become incredible. He had created great skills to help people become compassionate and so on. He had recruited many disciples. Then, one day, he realized that the disciples he trusted the most had betrayed him. They had killed his family members and stolen his skills and techniques. How could people like that be considered Buddhist cultivators? The Buddha delivers all living creatures from suffering and torment? Those illusions looked extremely real, like the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. If someone who tried to climb up the stairs had any doubt, they couldn't get the top anymore. Lin Feng could imagine how hard the exam was. Lin Feng's heart was racing. He imagined how terrifying it was for people who got to the top and saw Demon Qi. How devastated were they? Achieve supreme enlightenment? How cruel! How could people achieve supreme enlightenment like that? Chapter 24-22. Buddhist Mountains leader Lin Feng continued moving forwards. He saw all sorts of things. For Buddhist monks who had faith and who were determined, passing all those tests was a beautiful thing. But the one who had created that test wasn't a real Buddhist cultivator. He wanted to crush people's faith. That's why it was so cruel. If someone firmly believes until the last minute, it must be even more horrible, thought Lin Feng. He continued climbing up the stairs. Finally, he arrived at the top after experiencing someone's life. That life was a Buddhist monk's life. He had experienced love and hatred, but he abandoned everything to achieve enlightenment, and in the end, he lost everybody he loved. They died, and in the end, he had a miserable life. When Lin Feng reached the last step, he heard a voice say, "Do you still believe?" Hearing such a thing was shocking. Lin Feng took another step and arrived at the very top of the mountain. He sensed the demon qi and heard, being a Buddhist in this world is useful if you want to be strong, and it's also the goal when you're a demon cultivator. Demon cultivation and Buddhism are the same. I am a Buddha. Then Lin Feng saw a woman, Buddhist and demon energies intertwining around her. The two antagonistic energies were having a fierce battle. That's the one who experienced the miserable and tragic life. Lin Feng was grim and took a deep breath. He understood why Tianqi had no way to free himself. People who managed to pass the exam of the flight of stairs were extremely determined and motivated, and when they arrived at the top, their beliefs, their faith were crushed, which also crushed them emotionally. Lin Feng's figure flickered. He arrived in front of Tianqi again and said, "Brother, even if you passed the tragic and sad exam of the flight of stairs, you don't need to be disappointed in everything. Our two teachers and all our fellow disciples love you as a brother, and it's not a lie, it's true." Tianqi shook his head. "If they're honest, it's great, and if it's all a lie, it doesn't matter either. I already gave up. Leave now. Don't disturb me while I practice cultivation. It's my own decision, and it has nothing to do with you. If you accept to reply to a few of my questions, I'll leave," said Lin Feng. Tianqi opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng. "Go ahead. Your faith has been crushed, you don't believe in Buddhism anymore. Why did you turn into a demon cultivator?" asked Lin Feng. Demon cultivation is merciless and emotionless. The only purpose is to become strong. You can see how strong I've become. Do you think I had the ability to become that strong in the past? Alright, you think you can only be strong that way, so you became emotionless and merciless to become strong. But then again, why do you want to become so strong? Asked Lin Feng. In this world only strength matters. If you're strong, you can control everything. If you're strong, you can say you're a Buddha, you can say you're a demon, it all doesn't matter. You can choose to be what you want to be. What was the purpose of the one who made you become a demon? Asked Lin Feng. He's had a miserable and sad life, and then he achieved supreme enlightenment. He didn't want other people to have the same life as him, so he decided to help others. He is an extraordinary being. If you can't become a demon, then you can continue believing in Buddhism, it doesn't matter anyway. Both can become peerless cultivators, said Tianqi slowly. Lin Feng burst into frantic laughter, like a madman. Tianqi asked, "What are you laughing at?" Second fellow disciple, "I'm laughing because you seem so naive. Since he achieved supreme enlightenment and became a peerless demon, he's supposed to be selfish and focus on his own strength. He's supposed to practice with single-hearted devotion and without distracting thoughts. So, why would he help other people? I'm laughing because you think you achieved supreme enlightenment. You think you're having a good life as a demon cultivator. You're just a tool for him," said Lin Feng. "Now, I will show you how to achieve supreme enlightenment again. If you still don't believe me, then we'll break off ties forever. You say that demon cultivation, merciless and emotionless are the best ways to become strong quickly. How? I've never changed. I love my closed ones. I hate my enemies. Back then we were similarly strong. How strong am I now?" demanded Lin Feng. His robe started fluttering in the wind. He stepped forwards, and a terrifying energy filled the air. Tianqi's face changed drastically, and he jumped away. "You think you can escape?" Lin Feng's eyes became pitch black. Tianqi had the impression he was being absorbed into hell. Lin Feng raised his hand and grabbed Tianqi's neck. "Maybe you did achieve supreme enlightenment, but you're SOSO now." He threw Tianqi away, and the latter crashed into a wall. He pulled a long face and stared at Lin Feng, while releasing demon qi in angry waves. "You're angry? You're not qualified to be angry. Our teachers made great efforts to raise you and you decided to break off ties? You're worthless," said Lin Feng, walking forwards. He raised his fist again. Tianqi was angry. He released ancient imprints and shot them towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng destroyed them instantly. He grabbed Tianqi again and threw him onto the ground violently. A crater appeared under Tianqi, and he coughed up blood. "That's what you call achieving supreme enlightenment? You've become a tiny little insect. You've become weaker after achieving supreme enlightenment. I can kill you in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng looked at Tianqi disdainfully and said, "Don't tell me that you achieved supreme enlightenment and that it's the best way to practice cultivation when I'm stronger than you. You say that strength is the most important thing, that Buddhism is demon cultivation, maybe. But in any case, the most important thing is to listen to your heart. I am strong, but I listen to myself, I have my own stories, I have my own life. There are people I love, there are people I hate. I think I'm quite free and unfettered, unlike you," said Lin Feng. Tianqi shivered. "And these people who live at the top of the mountain, are they enlightened beings?" snarled Lin Feng, glancing at the crowd icily. He glanced at them, and buildings exploded instantly. Qi rolled in waves towards Lin Feng. He flickered, pointed his fingers at someone, and that person instantly died. "Killing you people who have achieved supreme enlightenment is a slight effort," said Lin Feng, rolling up his sleeves. Then he landed in front of Tianqi again and said, "Did you see that clearly? You really achieved supreme enlightenment?" Tianqi was trembling and staring at Lin Feng. His younger fellow disciple was crazy and honest. He had never changed, he loved his friends and hated his enemies. Why change? You passed the test of the flight of stairs and changed because you thought you had achieved supreme enlightenment. I've also gone through a lot, and I also experienced many lives. I'll show you," said Lin Feng. Suddenly, Tianqi started dreaming. Lin Feng forced him to experience the different lives of the king of the 10,000 beasts. After a long time, the dream ended and Lin Feng said to Tianqi, "I experienced more than you and I didn't change. Why did I manage to do that and you didn't? Even if you don't believe in Buddhism anymore, even if you don't want to be a Buddhism monk anymore, why did you need to change your personality? Why do you exist? What is your purpose in life?" Lin Feng was furious. Tianqi thought he had achieved supreme enlightenment? "You mean it's a conspiracy?" asked Tianqi. "Of course. Come with me," said Lin Feng. Their figures flickered. There was nothing where Lin Feng took Tianqi, but he took out a sword and slashed it. Break! Clear notes sounded as something unseen broke. Fissures appeared in the atmosphere. Tianqi was stunned. "Nothing that is invented can escape from my perceptions," said Lin Feng. They continued moving forwards. There was a mountain there and a figure at the top. There was a man there, half Buddha, half demon, holding a woman in his arms. "It's him." Tianqi was astonished. "Indeed, it's him. He's the one at the center of all this," said Lin Feng. "You really think he's helping you?" "What is his goal?" asked Tianqi. "To become a peerless saint," replied Lin Feng firmly. Tianqi was stupefied. Lin Feng said to that person, "You're still alive, if I'm not mistaken." The person slowly turned around and looked at Lin Feng. His face was blurry, it was impossible to see his features. He was half demon, half Buddha. "I think we know one another," said Lin Feng. "Lin Feng," said that person. Lin Feng wasn't surprised. He could sense that he did indeed know that person. "Who are you?" asked Lin Feng. "You'll know in time. Now, take him away." "He came voluntarily, I didn't force him." "There's no need to disturb me," said that person calmly. "All right, we'll meet again," replied Lin Feng easily. He left with Tianqi. "You know the difference between high-level saints and peerless saints?" asked Lin Feng to Tianqi. "I know," said Tianqi, nodding. "What are conditions to become a peerless saint?" asked Lin Feng. "2 sorts of special original strength at the maximum level, then you must make them fuse together," said Tianqi slowly. Suddenly, he looked astonished as if he had just understood something. His heart started pounding. Indeed, that cultivator is a terrifying Buddhist monk, and he wants to become a peerless saint. For that, he needs to understand the opposite original strength, demon original strength. "He used you guys to study," said Lin Feng. Tianqi was astonished and trembling. Chapter 24-23. True Self. Lin Feng showed Tianqi a lot. Had he made a mistake? Back then, he didn't really care about the outside world. He was free, but he was also very determined on the path of Buddhism. Lin Feng knew that. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu also knew that. But during the previous decades, he had focused on climbing the Buddhist mountain because of his religion, his faith had been ruined, and his soul had been bruised all over. He had decided to focus on becoming stronger, he had decided to become a demon. In a few years, he had become a saint, so he was convinced that it was due to his choice. But now Lin Feng had used facts to show him he was wrong. He had been used by other people. He couldn't withstand a single attack from Lin Feng. Lin Feng was the same as before, and he had become strong too, and he was still becoming stronger quickly. So why was Tianqi becoming stronger quickly? Because he had decided to practice demon cultivation? Lin Feng looked at Tianqi and said icily, "You became stronger, so what? Someone ruined your faith, your personality changed, and you convinced yourself you were happy that way? Don't you feel ashamed, ridiculous, and miserable? Your fate was in someone else's hands." Tianqi took a deep breath and asked himself what he had done wrong. Someone had used him? "Second fellow disciple," said Lin Feng. Suddenly he didn't sound as cold, he sounded calm and serene. Tianqi slowly turned his head to Lin Feng and looked at him straight in the eyes. "I came here to find some answers. Now, I told you all I wanted to tell you. I hope you'll return to your true self, I can't force you to change. I hope you'll understand who you really are and how to live your life. If you really want to stay like that, I'll just leave immediately, and I will never come back to you," said Lin Feng, staring at Tianqi calmly. Tianqi also wondered who he really was. He closed his eyes, he had to listen to his heart, he had achieved supreme enlightenment once, now he had to do with his heart. He had to forget about everything. He needed to understand his own emotions. Tianqi visualized many things. He visualized a young Buddhist monk at the top of a mountain meditating. He said to a middle-aged man, "Teacher, why do we practice cultivation? Cultivating our mind and body is important to learn things, to become qualified. It helps you understand yourself, it helps you choose your path," smiled the middle-aged man. He didn't really understand, but the middle-aged man laughed and tapped his head. The little Buddhist monk grew up. He practiced really hard, he traveled all around, he was tired, life was difficult. He went back to the mountain, the middle-aged man was still there, he clapped his shoulders and smiled, little Chi, you traveled for 2 years." The Buddhist monk who had grown up smiled widely. "Teacher, I feel purer in my heart, I feel infinitely grateful." "I didn't ask you to leave for so long though," another middle-aged man smiled. The Buddhist monk lowered his head and grinned. Tears appeared in his eyes and flowed along his cheeks. He suddenly felt so sad. He understood. He finally understood. He suddenly opened his eyes. He cut his long black hair, and after a few seconds, he was completely bald again. He looked at Lin Feng, he was still crying, but he still smiled broadly. He felt sad and happy at the same time. He had returned to his true self. Nobody could use him anymore. "Lin Feng, thank you," said Tianqi. Lin Feng smiled broadly too. He knew that the Tianqi he knew had come back to his true self. "Second fellow disciple," said Lin Feng. They hugged. "Let's go back, Lin Feng. I want to see our teachers," said Tianqi suddenly. He was impatient. "All right, let's go back," said Lin Feng smiling. They both left. At that moment, there were still many strong cultivators at the top of the mountain. Tianqi wasn't the only one who had been influenced by Lin Feng, the others were, too. They were also struggling in their hearts. But all of that had nothing to do with Lin Feng anymore. In Tiantai, Mu Chen and Emperor Yu gazed into the distance. They were waiting. Lin Feng had left for a few days already and he hadn't come back, so they were worried. Even though Lin Feng was strong, the Buddhist mountain was mysterious, and they had heard that Lin Feng had tried to fly straight to the top of the mountain. There had been a terrifying battle, and after that Lin Feng had disappeared. In the distance, a beam of light appeared and shot in their direction. They couldn't see anything, but they heard sonic booms. They landed on the ground, a gigantic crater appeared as dust rose up in the air. Then, someone appeared in front of them and didn't dare look at them. The two were stupefied. Then they saw Lin Feng land there. "Little Chi," said Mu Chen. He was stupefied. Tianqi was on his knees in front of them. "Teachers, I am a bad disciple," said Tianqi. He sounded extremely sad and guilty. He banged his head on the ground. Dust continued rising around him. Phew! Emperor Yu and Mu Chen glanced at each other and smiled. Little Qi was back. Stand up. Little Qi, you're back, we're happy. They walked up to him and dragged him up, or at least they tried to. He didn't stand up. Teachers, let me kowtow here, said Tianqi, raising his head. He looked at them. He could see they weren't angry at him, but he still felt so guilty, so sad. He imagined how sad his teachers had been because of him. He felt like a horrible person. Little Qi, you made a mistake, but we don't blame you, said Mu Chen, pulling on Tianqi. Mu Chen is right. Little Qi, you're back. Let bygones be bygones, said Emperor Yu. Tianqi looked at the two teachers. He felt so guilty. Second fellow disciple, stand up. You're making our teachers sad like this. Let bygones be bygones, said Lin Feng, walking towards Tianqi. Tianqi looked at Lin Feng and then at his teachers. He kowtowed again and said, your teachings are etched firmly into my mind. Tianqi stood up. Emperor Yu and Mu Chen were touched and really happy. Little Lin Feng, thank you for having brought little Qi back, said Mu Chen to Lin Feng. He hadn't thought Lin Feng would succeed. Teacher, we can't blame my second fellow disciple. The leader of the Buddhist mountain is too strong. He's using people who are determined. He makes them lose faith and turns them into pawns, said Lin Feng. He could talk from personal experience now. I understand. I also know what kind of person little Qi is. I never thought the legendary cultivator of the Buddhist mountain would make people change so much. Mu Chen sighed. Lin Feng, what did you find there? A strong and terrifying cultivator. He practices both Buddhist and demon cultivation. He's a high-level saint who's stuck at that cultivation level. He's trying to make both original strengths reach their maximum level to become a peerless saint. He controls the Buddhist mountain and studies the cultivators who go there to progress. That's why he turns them into demons. He studied demon cultivation using them. How strong! Mu Chen was astonished. He had never thought the cultivator there would be a high-level saint who wanted to become a peerless saint. How incredible! Yes, we know each other, but I'm not sure who he is, said Lin Feng. He didn't remember whom he knew who practiced both demon and Buddhist cultivation. I'll tell all the disciples of Tiantai that nobody should go there ever, said Mu Chen slowly. They had to be very careful. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.